God! Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another incredible, exciting installment of the Arcane Archive presents Cautionary Chronicles. We're just getting right into it today because, oh God, we got a lot of stories actually for you today. We'll see if we can get through all of them. We might have to trim some here or there if necessary because, not only are they long, but they're just utterly God and rage inducing. Just yeah.
I don't know. We've had worse days.
Have we? It's hard to say, honestly. I mean, perspective is difficult when you're in the midst of like a brain aneurysm of just utter, but you know what? Let's find out. Let us know. Hey, you guys can tell us from the other videos and such. Were the other videos or the other stories worse than some of these? Maybe they were in different ways. We'll find out. Because in today's episode of Cautionary Chronicles, we have quite the doozies, at least in my opinion. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Sammy, would you like to go ahead and please take away the first story on today's docket, which admittedly isn't the worst.
We started with a not so inducing story. The title is "The Players Want to Limit the DM Influence," which when I saw that, I went.
What does that even mean?
This is either
what does that even
a really
mean?
shitty DM or a really shitty group of players as it goes. So this is from OP's perspective. So this is something that has never really happened to me before. I've been a DM for a while, not extremely experienced or anything like that, but I've run a few games. A few weeks ago, I started talking to someone I know, and they mentioned they had a group of friends looking for a DM and asked if I could do it. Since I really like D&D, I didn't think twice, and I said sure. I met with the group for a session 0 to sort of discuss what they were looking for in a game. Here's what they told me. They wanted someone to run Curse of Strahd for them, which is fine. That is one of my favorite modules, but that's where problems came up. I told them I'd be happy to, as Curse of Strahd actually has a lot of variables and ways to make things interesting. That was when a player stopped me mid-sentence and says, "Before you start, I want to make sure you're running it for us without change. I want you not to influence the module at all. Don't even change a comma. I hate it when DMs think they know better than the folks at D&D." Also, it's not the folks at D&D, it's the folks at
Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast. So yeah, already just not a great start. Look, we'll just keep going, and then I have my feelings about this.
Yep.
That was strange to say the least. Agreed. But I understand wanting to run something as it was intended, and I said I would definitely follow the module. However, the player continued, "No, you shouldn't even use dialogue that isn't in the module, okay? That's how D&D is meant to be played. Also, you need to roll dice out in the open for all of us to see. All right?" This is strike 2. Things felt really strange to me. I know I'm not experienced or anything, but this didn't feel normal. So I asked them plainly what they were expecting of me. And this one player, who seemed to be speaking for the group, said, "We hate when DMs abuse their powers to manipulate the world. That's why we only play modules and make sure the DMs don't change a single thing from them." I imagine my expression didn't seem too good when he said that, because what followed were a bunch of complaints about DMs, and from me, it sounded like they were way too close to player versus DM mentality. It went on for a while, but there was no way I was DMing for them. I'm barely experienced enough to deal with normal players, and to me, this definitely isn't normal. Honestly, at that point, they were expecting me to be an AI simulator for their game with a voice, which is not at all what I'm looking for. I told them that, and that we weren't going to be a good fit. As expected, they didn't like my response and started to angrily shout that I was wasting their time, that I wasn't a true DM, etc. That being said, I will no longer be DMing for this group or for anyone that this quote-unquote friend of mine introduces me to. I'm just glad it didn't go beyond session 0. Now, this person, contrary or the opposite of some of the people we're going to talk about later in this wonderful chronicles, actually had the smarts to realize that this wasn't okay or normal and got out.
Their spider senses were tingling.
Yeah,
something
that was good.
Fierce
The
right
hairs
there.
On the back of your neck were standing up, and nope.
They absolutely just Sherlock Holmes the crap out of this situation where they were just like, hang on a minute. Like, as soon as dude literally cut him off, apparently mid-sentence, going yeah, no, okay, you shouldn't even use dialogue. You shouldn't even use dialogue.
First of all, I don't know how many modules you've ran. I've read a couple of modules. There isn't dialogue.
I mean, there is,
but not enough
for certain NPCs. But no, there is no
actual games.
they literally just wanted like NPCs where you're just like you
Hello.
talk. They literally just say like, "Hi, how are you?" And then they're just like, "So how do we
Welcome
do
to the
this thing?"
town. Hi.
There is no dialogue specifically to showcase
Yeah.
that question you have just queried to me. Can you please repeat the question?
They wanted a DM that basically was a guard from Skyrim, which I don't
Not
understand.
even guards from Skyrim have like three separate or maybe like four separate dialogue options that you just ask them and they'll just say these things. Like,
Did
but
you
they
hear
didn't
what
even want
happened with the
that.
tower outside of town?
Exactly. They didn't even want that.
Yeah.
Oh, did someone steal your sweet roll?
Roll. Yeah.
Like, you know.
So here I'm gonna say this. So there's a small part of me that understands wanting a module to be run the way the module is intended.
Sure.
I've played in games before where people were like, "There's going to be some homebrew elements to this module," but then we get into an encounter in the module that they keep everything exactly the same except for like one thing that doesn't make sense and makes it worse, and that does piss me off because I'll give an example. I've played through Horde of the Dragon Queen, Tyranny of Dragons 1.5 times now. I played through
Mm-hmm.
the entire thing as written, with like I think a couple things were taken out to make it less railroady
Sure.
because my DM was like, "I'm fucking tired of this garbage. Why do we play this module?"
Yeah, that's fair.
Um,
I don't know why
but
you
then
guys did it again
then we had
either.
someone who liked the setting. It's fine. But
I
they
mean,
changed a bunch of shit in the beginning, and like there was some other stuff that got
the
changed.
setting is just the
We
the
went
Sword Coast.
we
Just
went to Zonthal's Tower, which has some really annoying puzzles in it and annoying encounters just to get into the tower. And there's a fight where you go and you fight a Jin. No, what's the rock version? A Dow?
what?
Oh, the not the Ifrit, not the Jin. Is it a Dow?
Oh, there's
It's I
the
think it's a
menace.
Dow.
Yeah, Dow. You're right. Yeah, a
So
Dow. A
there's
Dow is
an
correct. You're right.
encounter where you have to the Dow basically poisons you with a T set or whatever. And I knew what the encounter was because I'd played it before. I didn't take charge. I let another player who hadn't played do everything. I didn't say anything. I didn't metagame. And he completely ignored all of the rules of the encounter. And it fucked the encounter completely. And it frustrated the ever living shit out of me. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I was just like, right, fuck it. I guess we're just not reading today. But I'm a petty asshole. So maybe there's a little bit of that in here as well. But like, if you're not going to change anything else, at least pay attention. But like
Well,
this is like to an extreme that I don't understand because I've
well,
played
because
Curse of Strahd. Not everything in the book is always going to happen anyway. So like
well,
your
no,
DM
because
has to make
it's
choices.
about well, it's about obviously what the choices. They're saying it's about what the players make the choices. Where it's like
Sure.
depending on where your players go, this is what happens in the book, and this is what's supposed to go on. But the another issue though being too is the problem is because another way of thinking of it as well is like, okay, you want the GM to do it exactly like the book. The thing being is, okay, well, what's to stop you guys then from like looking ahead and then just metagaming the crap out of everything
That too.
because you literally have the module and if you want him to do the module exactly like to me that almost seems like they're trying to intentionally almost cheat where it's just like they're like but I also see it in the other side too, right? The other side of it being is that GMs can also, like they said, there is a precedence for GMs abusing their power to like make things way more uber difficult and crazy than it
Or just
is.
messing up
Like,
encounters.
or messing up encounters, or just again, just whatever, doing things outside of like whatever. Like, I understand maybe some of what they're saying, but also on the other hand, it's like, well, if you know exactly what's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen, apparently, then what's to stop you guys from metagaming and just basically like directing or manipulating events to be how you want it? And maybe that's the
What?
type of game you want to play, and I guess that's fine or whatever because you just want to
Go
feel
play Adventures League.
well, yeah, go play Adventures League or play a
100%.
video game. Go play a video game. Like that's the
Go play
like
Baldur's Gate, go play Adventures
and I'll
League.
also I'll also even stipulate even further that it's like technically speaking, the way that the module is supposed to be run is highly subjective. Like
It is.
everything in D&D, literally the player's handbook itself deliberately stipulates that all of the so-called rules are merely guidelines and suggestions
Yeah.
for or foundations to play the game. Like, but you
Now,
can't sit there and say, "Oh, don't have the GM role play." Then what? The GM's supposed to have fun too. What are you supposed to do while you guys are sitting there? Like, and are you guys just gonna talk to each other the whole time? You're not gonna talk to anybody else? Like, come on, man.
yeah, I mean, the other part with even there are some like really railroady modules that I think you could get away with this and it'd be fine. Curse of Strahd
Yeah.
is an open area which
That's,
you get to choose which way you go. There are weather rolls, there are encounter rolls, there are weather dependent encounter rolls. There are certain things that could or couldn't happen
I
depending on
mean,
choices you make. And so
ironically,
you're gonna tell me that you don't want them to take any liberty because you have to take a liberty to run Curse of Strahd correctly anyway.
but also ironically, just play freaking Horde of the Dragon Queen
Don't
or
play Horn
Rise
of the
of
Dragon.
or
Hey
Rise of
guys,
Tiamat. If they
play
want
no,
a
don't play some
perfectly
play like Summer Citadel
railroad,
or Dungeon of
just
the Mad Mage.
streamlined, just
Don't
do that.
no, just play
Hey, they deserve
what's
it.
the one in
Okay.
Chult? What's the other one?
What? Tomb of Annihilation?
Yeah, play Tomb.
Tomb of Annihilation is just no, they would not even be able to. You know what? Either way, that I think everybody can agree that that group was yeah,
It made me
weird,
angry.
definitely not
I mean,
normal,
they said my
absolutely
name, but
ridiculous. Like it was
I
just that was
just
a ridiculous stance to have. And the fact that they legitimately like non-ironically were asking the GM to like basically be a VI, not even an AI, a VI system where they can't even respond. Like, I don't even know what they were wanting to do there. Regardless, though, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next story. This one is an extra long one, though we might gloss over a couple of the details since they might not be entirely relevant, just kind of get to the points that we're looking for. But this one right here is the first of a two-part story that this OP has so generously donated to us for our cringe factory here. And there's a lot, you guys. There's a lot about this freaking story that just me and Sam were just so
it was
let's
really funny while I was reading my stories and hearing Adam in the corner just be very angry at words.
there's just so much. There's so much. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's do it. So the post is as am I the asshole for being upset at a
Yes.
character death? Kind of, but also not really, because yeah, we'll get into it. This got really long, so TLDR at the bottom. I'm not sure if I'm the asshole or not in this situation. It's my opinion that the death was unfair slash borderline railroaded, but I'll try to convey as much as I can about both sides of the story. To start, I was playing a lawful evil necromancer. See, right there, you already know that there's going to be some interesting stuff going on when someone says lawful evil or evil in
Or
any
Lawful
way.
Evil. Lawful Evil's great.
He was kind of a weirdo and often broke social norms and didn't innately understand right from wrong. That's another very clear
That's not what lawful means.
verbal. He had got that's the thing. People don't understand. He had gotten into a few shenanigans over the course of the campaign, usually involving necromancy. Now, I'll admit that I wasn't exactly a stellar player when it came to how I played him
Look at that
and chose his
accountability.
actions. He does it right off the bat, and that's one thing I can respect about this OP. He is very clear and honest about, yeah, I honestly probably about 50% the asshole here. Here's a list of some of the trouble he got into. Regularly reanimated skeletons kept in his bag of holding, broke into a graveyard for more skeletons, paying off the gravekeeper to keep it a secret, messed around with dark rituals, summoning some kind of minor monstrosity, a pixie, and other such things, cut off the pinky fingers of an NPC he befriended after drugging him in order to get the components to summon a higher power devil to bargain for immortality instead of dealing with lichdom. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that like third thing was like way more huge than like the two or three other things before that. Like that took off and got out of hand real fast. Attacked a retired PC when he refused to give him the bronze brazier. I believe braziers.
Brazier.
Brazier, that's the one. Thank you. I was like, it's not a bra. What the hell? He looted so that my wizard could resummon his familiar. Wizard was under the delusion that it was actually his deceased cat before he got cat back. Another one asked the pixie to pull a prank. It said okay and flew off before he got more details, and it burned down the house of an NPC that another PC was getting close to. No deaths, but the NPC had to move somewhere else. The summoned devil that he conjured actually wandered around town for a while and made some deals with NPCs, trying to make a deal with the bard and NPC's love interest. This is why the bard told the guildmaster about my wizard's confession. So those are pretty bad things. I acknowledge fault for causing problems in the town, and my character faced consequences for his actions in the forms of threats, getting kicked out of the Adventurers Guild, and told that he would be exiled from town after the party completed what they were in town for. I think he also had to pay a fine or something. I don't remember. His notes on the dark rituals were taken away, and the spell Raise Dead was stricken from his spellbook. He had admitted to all these misdeeds to the party's bard while drunk, who then told the guildmaster and the rest of the party, leading to these consequences. However, one thing he had yet to be dealt with was the cutting of the fingers of the NPC. He had deliberately chosen an NPC in order to avoid doing it to a party member, as the ritual the DM had provided required the component listed as the finger of a friend. So even that right there also kind of tells me that the GM themselves is already a bit problematic with that being a thing here. It could be because it's the fact that he provided that at all, but the fact that he then made the component prerequisite a finger of a friend is like, okay. I knew that it would be pretty shitty to do to a PC, so I used a sorcerer when my wizard was vaguely chummy with. Excuse me. This sorcerer was extremely pissed off and devised a plan to get revenge on my wizard. Meanwhile, my wizard has sort of had a come to Jesus moment where he realized that he massively effed up and was working on taking odd spell casting jobs to save up for a regeneration spell to fix the sorcerer's fingers. Oh, that's so nice. See, look at that. The sorcerer, however, took advantage of this and used a job to lure my wizard out into an isolated part of town. He wrote a request for several castings of mold earth to dig a 40-foot hole, and of stone shape and a remove curse in order to drain my wizard's spell slots. He then revealed himself as the client and attacked my wizard while he was in the hole. He had also brought along another NPC caster, so it was 2-1. One thing that needs to be noted is that teleportation in this town is impossible. Okay. If you attempt it, you will immediately be teleported into a jail cell. What kind of ridiculous restriction is like that? Again, once again, another red flag of the GM, I would say. Okay. So our characters were aware of this. For this reason, my wizard had prepared Misty Step in order to potentially teleport to jail if he were to see the sorcerer again. But this day, he didn't do that due to the extra spells he needed to prepare for the job. It had then been several days, and the sorcerer had paid another NPC to tell my wizard he was actually out of town, and rolled a pretty high persuasion, so my wizard thought he had nothing to fear, which right there is also incorrect. He is lying to the wizard. He should have rolled a deception check. Now, maybe that is the OP, like a typo. Instead of doing it was actually deception instead of persuasion. But either way, if it was persuasion, to try and like trick the wizard or the player into believing that he was telling the truth, that is a thing that the GM is like, okay. In the hole, my wizard tried to reason with the sorcerer, explaining his remorse and even offering both gold and his own fingers as potential collateral instead of a fight. However, without even given the chance of a persuasion roll or anything of the sort, the sorcerer declined and just continued to attack. Now, at this point, it basically just goes off into how his wizard attempts to flee and get away, but apparently due to some miscommunication on how he does so, he ends up like failing and getting bombarded by magic until he's just on the cusp of almost dying. His cat, apparently that he has with him all this time, though, does end up inadvertently dying, unfortunately. And on his last legs, he utilizes an item that was a golden ticket that his GM said would teleport him or transport him to the Witchlight Carnival if used. Now, the player figured that if he teleported, he would end up in jail because apparently all teleportation functions like that in this town. But it was better than death. So he used the ticket and he got teleported to the carnival instead of the jail. Now, apparently, the GM rolled a percentile die to see what would happen when he used the ticket. He asked which option that the player preferred, the jail or the carnival. And the PC or the player did not know that apparently a retired player character was at this carnival and was potentially also hostile to his character. And he assumed that he could get help at the carnival because they have many allies there. And so they chose the carnival. But the player or the OP says that this was a mistake on their part. because they did not take into account that I guess a lot of NPCs or retired PCs at the carnival were still hostile to them. So, upon successfully teleporting to the carnival, the OP's character, has a mental breakdown because their cat is dead now and just wailing and holding them in their arms. And at this point, the GM informs a fellow player that their retired character actually heard the crying and then goes over because they worked at the carnival, but they had a really bad, strong dislike and hatred for the wizard, for the OP's character. Now, the player was given control of the retired character and walked over and cast Dimension Door to warp both characters out of the carnival, which, once again, wouldn't technically work unless the wizard, the OP's character, was willing to teleport with them. So it's like I like maybe it could have been what they were just like, oh, they're so, but that contradicts what they were saying here because they teleport them out of the carnival, and at this point, the retired character has heard a significant amount of the wizard's actions from another player character, but not necessarily of the consequences that have already happened to the wizard. So the PC or the retired character apparently tries to ask the wizard, like, what's going on, what's happening, but apparently the wizard was just completely unable to speak due to his level of grief over his dead cat. And so then the PC approached, and the wizard still did not say anything. They're just wailing and crying, even when questioned of what's going on. At this point, apparently, though, the retired character decides to use a spell and just axe him, take the wizard out completely, and finishing him off, no death saves at all at this point. So it's like, at this, I don't even know what to say. It's like like the player apparently that then took OP out, like, at least tried to offer some kind of conversation or interaction, but the wizard just decides not to. It's just they're just inconsolable, even though they had the wherewithal to try to survive, and they're looking for help. Like, I don't understand why they wouldn't even try to get help, maybe to revive their dead cat at the carnival, instead of just sitting there wailing and bawling. Like, this was the OP's decision. So now he goes into the little details about the factors that he thought were unfair. The ticket did not take him to the jail, but to the carnival where a hostile character was. The GM reasoned that it worked more like a summon than a teleport, but this was not conveyed to the party. The issue being, and I guess technically the above thing, the relevant information part is in parentheses to show that I think it was edited, like, after the fact. And so obviously this that information we got contradicts this here being like, the ticket didn't take him to the jail. Well, it's like, well, you just said that you would prefer to go to the carnival. So it's like, that axes that out. Nobody at the carnival intervened when the wizard arrived, despite having other NPCs there that were allies. Well, you weren't even talking anyway. Like you were just crying. And then on top of the fact, he cast Dimension Door, you have to be willing to go with him. So it's like, if you're willing to teleport with him, then there's nothing they could have really done it. Why would they intervene? They don't know that anything bad is necessarily happening. Like, and you didn't communicate anything that it was. So it's like, the retired PC's husband was across the carnival at the time, therefore could not stop the retired PC from killing the wizard. Why would they? She teleported you away. The fly spell, being determined to fly straight up, whatever, like that was part of the whole thing of how he ended up almost dying anyway. Not being allowed to try to reason with the sorcerer NPC, and violence being the only solution, and being put into a 2v1 against two casters that were around the same level as my wizard, who are also full on spell slots. Now that I can absolutely, I can give some credit. It's like, yeah, that does kind of stink, where it's like, if your character is apparently even in this situation at all, because they're actually trying to, like, remedy or atone for their sins that they committed previously, and then the person in question that they're trying to help isn't even willing to hear you out. Like, because also it's like, yeah, they cut off a finger, there was betrayal, there was, like, that's bad for sure, that's horrible. But also, if you have, like, regeneration scrolls and stuff, if this sorcerer is a pretty decent powerful spellcaster or has resources, they can just you can regrow the appendage, and the wizard is apparently clearly repentant and trying to do better. So it's like there should maybe at least have been some kind of ability to get out of this situation, diplomatically. I think that is true and fair. The plan being manufactured specifically to put my wizard in a spot where he would either die or teleport to the jail. The DM said he thought I had Misty Step prepared. I
So
mean,
I do want to say this because I don't think the OP is completely
no,
non-existent at fault here.
no. Well, they
And
clearly are.
there
Like,
are some players that get mad when you do this, but there is such a thing as consequences. And yes, it might seem unfair, but if you do fucked up shit, whether you're repentant or not, sometimes shit comes to bite you in the ass as a player. Your character
true.
ends up in a position they do not want to be in, and it sucks. But that's part of the game, especially if you're taking the low road and doing fucked up shit in your D&D game. Sometimes it's not going to be fair. Now, I understand the way you would feel
Well,
about
it would
this.
be fair in the regards of like you did fucked up shit, you get fucked
Yeah,
up,
yeah, like it doesn't feel
fuck around, you
fair,
find
or like
out.
you're like, well, this isn't fair. Like it's 2v1, or I'm in a position where I'm gonna die now. Like, but also you made decisions before that point. And I do understand. I do 100%. I understand the feeling of frustration. I've had it when I'm in the wrong. I've had it when I'm in the right and someone's trying to wrong me. But like, it's legitimate. Like, I get it. But also, maybe look back at what you do.
I mean, I think
But to
again,
be
to be
fair, this person
fair,
has also
he
articulated the fact that this is something they struggle with anyway.
and
This
and
the
and
social
we'll
cues and
yeah,
doing right from
and we'll get
wrong.
to that and stuff as well as like in terms of like, but I also stipulate in regards to that too. It's like he did technically get a lot of repercussions for all of his actions that happened. He got kicked out. He had to pay all kinds of fines. He got threatened. He like that like on top of the fact that like with more being said in part two as well, it's like it was clear. Now he does try to give like excuses for why he started to behave the way that he behaved, which is still like in my point, I'm not even really like we'll see real quick because it doesn't justify it in my opinion, but we'll see what everybody else thinks, but we'll continue on. Um the last stipulation you thought was unfair was because of the devil deal, my character could not come back easily. And because he was killed by the carnival, nobody but that retired PC knew where his body was. The other PCs would not go through the effort of both finding him and reviving him because of the previously described actions that he took. So he was permanently dead. I mean, that's just, yeah, like that. I don't think that's unfair at all. It's like that all technically makes sense. It's like, why would they? Like, if you are not friends with those people, if you're not even really allies, why would they come to help you at that point in your time of need? Like, but he goes on to say, I admitted fault to the actions my PC had taken, and here's some context as to why I made such bad decisions. At this point in the story, my character had very little to do, apparently. There was a nearly barren library in town, and I had tried to interact with and befriend NPCs to little avail. The DM would spend like 15 to 30 minutes role playing with the other players, two other players, in their own day-to-day activities. Then it was my turn. I would say, I'm going to talk to my new sorcerer friend. And he would gloss over that and go right back to another player. He tended to address each character one at a time in a clockwise format. So I'd wait for another half hour to an hour to get a turn where it would then be glossed over again. After a while, I started to just do some stupid things to get some modicum of game time. And it worked. So I kept doing it. I should have told the DM how I felt, but I didn't think to. After all, the problem was solved now, right? Until the consequences rolled in and my character was glossed over again because he was either having to hide in his room to avoid the sorcerer and could no longer do those activities without arrest or exile. I mean, there's another there is more context apparently in part two that is like that adds even more questions to this whole thing as well based off of the things that the other players are apparently doing too. But continuing, so I handled it poorly on my end. I admit that. Am I unreasonable to feel upset about my character's death? The player who controlled the retired PC also felt bad because she didn't want to have to take that action and would have preferred if the NPCs killed my character instead. She couldn't, within reason, avoid killing him due to the PC's past conflicts, especially with knowledge of his recent actions. Well, I mean, that's not necessarily up to her PC to do, though. We've talked about it already, and the DM refuses to retcon any details, and I have since made a new character. I don't like him as much, and the second that this new character came in, also a wizard, a ton of new NPCs, including a fellow wizard, and roleplay options also came out of nowhere. So at least I'm not being ignored for half a session at a time or more. And there's the option to play my old character again in the future as a devil in a higher level game. But because of the whole devil turning process, he'd basically be a new character with a completely different personality and no memory. It's been a few months, but I'm still torn up about how my previous character died. Am I the asshole?
That's not how devils work.
I mean, kind
You
of,
don't
but
you
not
do retain your
exactly.
memory, at
Technically
least.
speaking, but that, I mean, we've already ascertained there's a lot of red flags with this GM already.
I
Now,
mean,
he,
I'll give him
obviously,
credit for letting them roll a new character and immediately interacting with them as part of the story. Like that's a
well,
I guess
uh,
if you're gonna kill someone's character and allow them to roll a new character, at least you're making them present.
I mean, well,
That's good.
we'll see because again, part two
Yeah.
continues on and shows how that whole situation went. But essentially, that's end of the post for the first part here. Um, and it's like he does again at the bottom. He stipulates that he makes some edits and some changes after talking about it with a fellow player and friend to like make things more clear about like how he did stuff and how he messed up. And again, more of his mistakes. He says again, change some details after discussing with another player. It should be fixed now. He looks even worse. Haha. But he acknowledges that they are at least 50% of the asshole here. Edit part two. It might be relevant that to say that they have autism slash am on the autistic spectrum. They try their best to adjust their behavior depending on what they think they need to improve, but they often miss social cues or hints that they're doing something wrong unless it's explicitly stated to them. Another player said that they were warned that they might die if they do certain things, but they genuinely don't remember any of those times. And they joke around about how they almost died all the time, so that might be why they didn't internalize it. They were only actually pulled aside about their behavior about a month ago. They think, all in all, yeah. So it's like I guess clearly they might also have the issue of not great memory and not necessarily maybe hearing or understanding things or again just
Yeah.
retaining it maybe like so.
I really there's a comment here that I think is kind of how I felt about while you were reading it, which is this is mostly on you. Yes, the DM made some bad decisions, but in the end, you built a character that was sort of destined to go out badly. Right from the
Yeah.
beginning, you designed an amoral necromancer, and that was never going to end well. Every
No.
group has someone who tries this run at some point, and it
Yep.
pretty much always goes badly. Either
Yep.
the group starts getting into moral relativism
Moral.
101
Yeah.
arguments, and the game breaks down, or eventually the DM and or PCs put an end to it. You describe the character as not understanding right from wrong, but in more than one instance, you describe a character that knows right from wrong and chooses to do wrong. This such as developing things such as developing contingency for the teleportation spell or paying off a gravekeeper to keep things quiet demonstrate that you know that this thing will get you into trouble, and you are choosing to do it anyway. And then the last one is the thing is the sorcerer not being able to not being willing to listen to you. That's on you. You cut off his pinky fingers and have to pretend to be his friend. Yeah, no one is hitting the persuasion roll for that one. The relationship was dead the moment you tried it. Feeling upset about the character's death isn't wrong, but you also have to square yourself with the fact that you designed a character who was doomed from session zero. Like, and they did respond and like to it, and it seems to be pretty positive. Like, I'll I'll give you credit. Like, I understand wanting to try a character like this. We've all had it
Well,
at tables we've been at, but if you're gonna do this, you have to be a lot more self-aware. And maybe this person has talked about their shortcomings and what they need to grow and learn from. Maybe playing evil characters is not for you at this stage in your experience with this game. Especially with not understanding social cues, not necessarily getting everything that's being said around you, which is not your fault. It's not like you don't deserve to be a part of this kind of hobby, but maybe it was a bad choice. It doesn't align really well with you as a person to throw this out there and expect things to go well for you. Now, if you're playing in a table where you know things are going to end badly and everyone's okay with that, that's one thing. But it seems to be that you're the only one that's really salty about this, and you've learned from it, great. But the reality is like this was not going to be
well,
successful either way.
Well, again, there is a particular caveat to that stance that I will touch upon in the part two because there is a lot more context to the overall like vibe and theme, I think, of the campaign as a whole. Because right here, all we're really seeing is basically all of just his actions in a singular like player slash character thing, and then a little bit of a peek at some of the others. We don't know anything about how any of the others are doing or anything that any of the others have done. Whereas in the second part, he touches a little bit more on that, and then things become a little bit more interesting too. But that, in essence, would be this one. I'm sure anybody who's just read through this with us can already tell that this is exceedingly frustrating in numerous ways. And that, again, to be fair, this OP, he has absolutely acknowledged that he's at least like 50% the asshole here. And that, like, again, because like I said, like with the fact he already like did a lot of stuff, like he already got like into trouble. He already got like a lot of like repercussions for his actions, right? And he's apparently trying to do good. He's apparently trying to make up for his previous, sins and stuff. And it's like, I would have maybe at least get like, depending on what he actually said, like in character, what he would have said to the sorcerer, that's what I would have made dependent on whether or not he gets a role, right? If he had actually expressed like true remorse and had made like a real kind of emotional thing, it's like if the sorcerer really hates him so much, like, and believe that they were such close friends, and then the betrayal of that, if it, like, then that would mean that the sorcerer still does have some kind of emotional attachment or connection to him, and then would probably be seeking or wanting some kind of like explanation of like why did you do that? And so if the wizard was able to convey that for real, then I would be like, okay, you can give me a persuasion check. The DC would either be like super freaking high, or you would have to do it at disadvantage, like either one of those. Like, but I would still allow it because it would make for a pretty great role play moment too. Like, that's the thing. It would have made for a really great role play moment and a moment for the character to grow. They already suffered a lot for their other consequences and everything. But this particular thing that they were literally actively, the player was actively trying to make right, they're literally standing in essentially what is their own grave that they dug themselves in, like the rain at night. It would have been an amazing scene to literally be like, they're about to like, Fallout New Vegas style, take you out. And then he like pleaded with him, and he explained that he was sorry about everything that happened, and legitimately remorseful. And that could have been a very beautiful moment, but instead it wasn't, because the GM seemingly just wanted to end that character, which that does suck. And I can absolutely give the OP at least that much. That particular moment, that did suck. And that wasn't really cool. And again, we'll also kind of expand upon that in part 2. But for now, let us move on to the next story.
This is the Am I in the Wrong?
Correct.
Cool. We have a slightly shorter story. It'll still take me a really long time to get through, but
You read way faster than I do, okay? But I don't even want to hear that crap. You are not like reading challenged, okay? Absolutely
no,
not.
I just mispronounce things. Am I in the wrong for permanently killing off one of my player's characters? I've been DMing a group of 5 for over 2.5 years, and I recently killed off a party's warlock. I killed off the party's warlock by turning it into a deathlock. This was caused by the character, whose patron was an archdevil, repeatedly acting against his patron. I gave him many warnings, but the final straw was when the warlock killed his patron's favorite son, a pit fiend. I immediately asked him to make a new character and described the gross transformation his character underwent to turn into a deathlock. He immediately started screaming at me about it being unfair, and his character died so easily despite my repeated warnings. He said that unless I brought his character back, he would leave the table. So now I'm conflicted. Was I in the wrong for killing his character, and should I revive it or just let him leave? Now, obviously, this is much less complicated and much more straightforward. Now, I will preface my opinion. My opinion on this stems from the fact as to why I love warlocks so much. Because a lot of people don't like warlocks. They're not very powerful. They have issues. There's shortcomings that
They can be very powerful.
They can be powerful,
depending on how you build them.
But the reason I like warlocks so much is because they are the only they're the only class in the game that can create that kind of relationship with where you get your powers from. Obviously, clerics and paladins get their powers from, a deity.
I mean, there's a bit of a there's a bit of debate on paladins at the very least.
Well, to me, paladins get it from an oath, not a god.
But exactly, agreed. That is where they get it from.
I had to explain that to someone recently, and they thought that was really interesting. And they're like, "Oh, is that why?" Yeah. But the reason I like warlocks so much is because of what your relationship could be with the person who gives you the entity that gives you
can provide you power. Yes.
Now, and this is prefaced in the class description that your patron might ask you for things, and if you ignore them, things can happen to you. In my opinion, humbly.
Oh, very humbly, yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with this.
Of course you don't. Of course you
And
don't.
I've talked with other people I play with, who are like, oh, we want to play like a module. I want to play a warlock, and I'm like, but do you know what I could do? Like, do you know what could happen? And I always explain it. I'm always like, hey, just so you know, to me the weakness or strength of warlock, depending on how you want to look
It's
at it,
both. It's
is
both.
is
It's
is
a
how
blessing and a curse,
it's a
literally.
double-edged sword. Is how your character can be affected because of the
And
choices you make.
influence. Well, I mean, I one thing I will stipulate is absolutely I 100% agree in terms of like as a warlock, the whole point of the class, and it's one of the reasons why warlock is one of the best role play potential classes in the game because of the fact it gives you a literal built-in reason to have connection to a higher power being, which is amazing and great. And I wish a lot more GMs would do that just without, like, just normally anyway, because, like, who doesn't love interacting with much of these more powerful, higher, like, whatever. But anyway, the only thing I will stipulate is obviously I think that such a thing has to be clear between both the GM and the player. Now, because it is highly predicated on the type of deal that was made between the patron and the warlock. Doesn't automatically, just because you're a warlock, doesn't automatically mean that your patron can just do whatever necessarily they want with you. It depends on the contents of your contract and connection with them. They can obviously at any point always just take away your power, 100%. They're supplying that to you. Now, the amount of how they can actually like affect you physically or spiritually or mentally, now that might be something else. Again, we can use Mizura and Will in Baldur's Gate 3 as a great example. He made a very like in-depth contract with a devil. He didn't look
Yeah.
it over. He was desperate. He didn't really have time for that. He like, and she did that. Spoilers for Baldur's Gate 3, just as up. She did that on purpose for him. She purposely kind of put him in a position where he had to just accept, or a lot of bad things were going to happen if he didn't. And so, but that isn't necessarily though. That's not the same of how it works for other patrons. For devils, it's like they will obviously use contracts because that's literally what they do. But if you have like a great old one, for instance, who's like, you had a contact with him and you made a connection, or you established a connection with them. Like obviously that probably is going to have more to do with your mental faculties and stuff like that. Now, as you get higher level, you do end up actually physically changing a little bit from that. But I do think that either way, it is important for the GM and the player to mutually establish the exact extent of like what a patron can really do to them besides just simply strip them of their powers. Like, because even clerics
Yeah.
and even, paladins, it's like you do something wrong, again, you lose your powers, but you don't necessarily get like whatever. But with the obviously a warlock, it can be a little bit more almost intimate or intertwined in that way. So, depending on what you do with your backstory and how you made this deal with your patron, they could absolutely do this. And
Yeah.
the reason why I feel like this particular situation though is not unfair in my opinion is exactly because he made a deal with an archdevil. And any deal with an archdevil will always be a contract that will most
Yeah.
almost assuredly guarantee that your soul, or at the very least, like, you know, that, or I mean, maybe not always. Again, I guess once more, it would just depend on how in depth the GM and the player talk to each other about the actual stipulations and contents of the
Yeah,
contract.
like the one thing I will say, I tend to stay away from Archdevil, like the Fiend Warlock. I
Yeah,
just I don't like it. The other
it's
side of
not
it,
the worst,
no,
but
I don't like having a contract. If you make one and a DM doesn't
the
go over and make a
Undying
contract
Warlock's
with you,
worst.
yeah, yeah, but like what I mean is like role play wise, if
Yeah,
you
no, no,
bring
I agree.
a Fiend Warlock into a game and the DM doesn't write up a contract with you, there's no point in playing a Fiend Warlock. And if you bring a Fiend Warlock into a game and a DM writes a contract that is so restricting that you can't actually roleplay a character, there's no point in playing a Fiend Warlock. So I like playing things that are a little bit more ambiguously terrifying. But
Yeah.
the reality is like if this DM did things correctly, which I think they did, May hopefully. The reality was, even if they fucked up, the reaction of the player was so childish that it wouldn't even
I
matter.
mean,
Like I wouldn't even
I
consider
I
retconning
would say
anything.
also the biggest caveat here too is the fact that like the
They're gonna
GM
scream
says
at me.
he gave him many warnings, but then the warlock though literally killed his patron's favorite son.
Yeah, like
What did you think would happen? Like, here's the thing. Okay, you know what? Maybe it shouldn't have necessarily just been like, oh, the archdevil just instantly basically kills or takes your character like instantly. I do feel like maybe it was maybe a missed opportunity where it could have actually been like an act like a die hard revenge quest where you lose your powers. You are now completely powerless. I assume in the hells right now after having just killed his like, and he is coming for you now.
yeah,
You are
man.
you are most likely in his domain if you're killing
Dang,
his favorite son. He just takes away your powers. He shows up.
yeah,
Like now,
beautiful.
what are you gonna do? Like
You know,
that would be fair.
give some player
Maybe
autonomy. Yeah, I think
yeah, a little
the
bit. Like just like you can't necessarily
me.
just instantly turn him into like
I think the other dependency is how many times did he disregard the DM, and how many things did he do on top of the pit? Like obviously the pit fiend son, like the pit fiend was the final straw. But what other fucking things did this guy do that you were giving warnings for that made you get
mm-hmm,
to the point where you're like, well, his character's not his character anymore?
mm-hmm.
Because I think there are things like, I had this with a Great Old One Warlock where if I had decided to stay with my patron, that wouldn't be my character anymore.
Oh no, he'd be
We
gone.
got to
Yeah.
that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
He'd be gone.
unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I really liked the character and I ended up breaking the pact. After I got that tattoo of the pact on my
Yep.
fucking body. But
Mm-hmm.
here we are. I don't regret it.
I mean, hey, I'm sure your character has long lasting physical effects and marks from that pack too that will
Oh
never
yeah.
go away. So
Oh
hey,
yeah.
it's still perfectly applicable and
Yeah.
appropriate.
But the reality is that this isn't the wrong way to handle this. It's also about what kind of game you're running. Like I'm sure there are games out there
We're clearly missing, I
where
think, a decent amount of context because it's so
yeah,
short. So it's
but I
like
like but I like this. I do like because that's why I like Warlock. It is high stakes. You
it
are
definitely
just a
can
normal
be.
person. You're a normal person that got powers from something you don't understand because you needed them. Whether it was out of desperation, whether it was out of fear, whether it was by accident, you gained something that most people don't, and you really had no rights to either. So you're kind
I
of
mean,
at the
not
behest of
always.
another,
Warlocks
but
sometimes
like
do the work for it.
yeah, sure. But in my opinion, the way that they get their powers is intrinsically different. And I think this
Yes,
goes with
absolutely. That's why
this
there's
kind
spell
of
slots. So
event,
like
this kind of things happening to you are,
they're possible.
specific
They're not
to
outside the
Warlock.
realm of possibility.
Not at all.
And they again, like I said, like I can't necessarily say whether or not this was right or wrong because again, we're missing so much context.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, like what Sam also just said, of like it seems like the GM took at least within a reasonable amount of steps and warnings to let the player know, like, hey, you're gonna have consequences.
Yeah.
Now, like again, I don't necessarily know if I would agree with him just instantly being like, I'm just going to turn you into a deathlock. You're done now. Because again, what like similar to the last post, you miss out on some really amazing, juicy like flavor. Like, because that's also one of the biggest aspects of how a warlock can be so amazing is what happens if they do break their pact? What happens if they go like just simply like being writing it off like oh well you're dead now so like it's like that
Yeah. There's
that's
so many. There's
that's
more
a
you could
real
do with it.
that's a super weak, in my
Yeah.
opinion, kind of lazy. Now again, like Sam also mentioned before, like maybe this character was also doing a lot of other stuff that was like I don't know, not great, but it's also hard to say that because they literally killed a pit fiend, which is like one of the most evil creatures in the universe. And so it's like it's hard to say like were they evil, were they doing bad things, or were they
That's not
being
what I meant. I
good? It
meant,
was
or
just
were they
like
continuously fucking up their
that's what
shit?
I'm saying. And so it's like I don't really know like if this character was actually a cool, interesting, or good character who was like he fit with the party, he wasn't messing with the party. It's like that even more so though is like why are you just gonna instantly take him out? Why wouldn't you give the player a chance in some way, shape, or form? Like why are you just at that point just taking the character away without
Yeah.
any ability? Like that I could then see why he might be upset about that because that would suck because it's like, hey, there can be consequences. Like I said, his power is being taken away is a huge thing for one, on top of the fact that this archdevil now is going to be hunting him down with a vengeance, like for betraying him. And there's going to be like, and he appears, like, what do you do? And if he gets taken out that way, I could be like, okay, that's fair. There's not much you could expect with that. But for him to just literally be like, yeah, no, he's gone now. Like that is a weak kind of cop out that I also like, because again, it could have been a huge, amazing, like climactic kind of scene or moment with that they kind of just watered down. And that would be the only part about that I would say, like, that's where I kind of feel on that.
Yeah. I have to, before we get to the next story, I do have to pause real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries.
I'm gonna hit pause.
Yeah, go ahead and do your thing. We'll be right back in a second, y'all. And we're back. Hey, thank you guys. Pardon the little interruption there. Sammy had some important business he needed to handle real quick, a bit of emergency. But we are back, and we're gonna go ahead and skedaddle on to the next story on our little journey here today. This particular story is known as D&D Becomes Charades. Now, this is a particularly interesting one that I feel a certain personal kind of connection to, and we'll kind of get into that in a second. But so a couple of the old tabletop crew and I were reminiscing recently, and we brought up some of the horror story players who only came a couple of times before not getting invited back. I will make posts for some of the notable ones, but this guy stood out as an obvious first for some reason. So we played a pretty relaxed game most of the time. I'd say roughly 50% in character RP. I knew a guy, we'll call him Justin, who said he'd played a little in the past and was looking for a table. We were always trying out new players, so I told him to come on over. We all meet. He's meshing relatively well with the core group, though a little bit more intense than our more casual players. Some of the guys at the table did not delve into nerd culture past D&D, while Justin is talking about anime and such. Not a big deal. He's obviously nervous, and we've seen that countless times before now. Okay. We started playing, and he's coming out of his shell. Maybe too much. The first sign of what to come is when he says, I swing my sword at the goblin, and mimes swinging a sword horizontally. Nobody thinks anything of it. We've all got caught up in the moment before. Okay. Not typically for the first attack roll of the night, but hey, different strokes or swings in this case. As the night goes on, we watch Justin pantomime everything his character does. Attacks, drinking potions, dodging traps, eating food, everything. For a while, it's a little much, but ultimately still tolerable. At one point, he slid his chair back to stand and fire an arrow. Afterwards, we would agree, we all assumed he'd eventually pick up that the rest of us are not acting out every single thing our characters are doing. The straw that broke the hippogriff's back, however, was when they encountered a lone hippogriff in the woods. After some deliberation, Justin decides he wants the hippogriff to be his new mount. He stands up from his chair, steps away from the table, and announces, I leap onto the hippogriff's back and hold on until it accepts me as its rider, while, of course, taking several large steps and leaping across the dining room. This was an old house, and the landing caused everything to shake. At this point, our most outspoken and the owner of the house member shouted, Enough! You can calm your ass down and stay in your seat. Justin did go back and stay in his seat. However, he continued his charades for the rest of the night. After it was over, he thanked me for inviting him, and I responded, Justin, have you ever thought about LARPing? I think you'd like it better. End post. Okay, so my first biggest kind of response or reaction to this post here is like, why is this in r/RPG horror stories? Like, this isn't even a horror story by any real standards of measurement. I mean,
no, not really.
It's could maybe be interpreted as being like a bit cringe, maybe, but like from everything that the OP has shown and stated here, he didn't even actually do anything bad. Like,
nope.
Like, okay, for them, it's like, hey, we're apparently a much more chill, kind of laid back, casual gaming group. It's like, okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but nor is there anything overtly or particularly wrong about a guy who seems just really enthusiastic and trying to be immersed in the game that you guys are playing. Like you're saying, like he didn't hit anybody. He didn't like accidentally like some of the comments down here are also it's difficult to say because like someone was like one comment says it's pretty tame compared to some of the atrocities that get posted here, but I can't say I'd invite him back to my table. I want players to be excited and invested, but that's over the line for me. I hope we find a nice rowdy group or some LARPers. Also, bonus points for not making me read 4 paragraphs with a campaign background that mean nothing to the story. That's fair. Another dude comments, it's all fun and games until you accidentally hit another player and it's in real life PvP. And it's like, to that, I would say, though, it's like, well, there are multitude of stories that actually happen without any physical interaction and it results in real life PvP. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need a dude to accidentally hit you or whatever for there to start being a pop off. Like, if you're capable of that at all, then that's going to just be like a thing. Some other people are making some jokes are like, well, at least he didn't play like, the horny bard stereotype or whatever. Whereas, like, to that, I would be like, yeah, okay. I could see, like, if he literally, like, got up, unzipped his pants, went and found, like, a pie and started going at it like American Pie style, like, that could definitely probably be a little problematic and a bit much. That would definitely be like, okay, I think we've crossed a bit of a line here. But
You have
short
such a
of
way with
that,
words, Adam.
thank you, Sammy. I try my best. I like to have good diction, as it were. The vocabulary is vast, but I mean, what do you think? It's like to me, it's like this. I personally, I mean, I would love this kind of thing at my table. Like he's getting. In fact, I have had this exact thing at a number of my tables before, where people have been like they pantomime with it. I mean, I do that as a GM, where I'm like, you slide over the thing. I mean, heck, I'm doing it even right now. I am very physically communicative, I guess, and expressionate. Uh, and so for me, it's like, I get like, oh, he's hopping around and like jumping a lot and stuff. And it's like, okay, granted, yeah, maybe that is a bit much, but like my biggest thing is like you guys like literally just snapped at him. Like, and the entire time, like you're kind of talking down to him. Like, honestly, if anything, I feel like the OP and his friends are kind of douchebags. They're kind of assholes. It's like
Yeah.
they're literally like almost shaming or debasing him just because he's just excited. He's excited and immersed and he is interactive. And they're just like, yeah, it was a bit much. Like the first sign of things to come is then he literally says, I swing my sword at the goblin and mime swinging his sword horizontally. And it's like, nobody thinks anything of it. We've all gotten caught up in the moment before, but I mean, not typically on the first attack roll of the night. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What's your problem, bro? Like, why is that even any sign of anything at all?
It's like
Like,
weird. It's like weirdly mean for no
like
reason.
it's just like these guys sound like a bunch of weird, like hipster douchebag, like arrogant.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure what's going on. It's like you really think you're so much better than him because you guys don't pantomime everything your characters would do, and you just expect him to just check the room and be like, oh, because everybody else doesn't do it, then I shouldn't do it. Like, what the fuck? Like,
I
are
think
you serious?
what bothers me is like this better than thou kind of feeling.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. The weird sense of like superiority or like kind of dumping on him for it. It's like, and I could maybe understand. Like, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely a precedence for over enthusiasm sometimes being a bit of a problem or at least causing some conflict or issues where a person can get a bit too excited and interested and they can sometimes overwhelm other people or like overshadow and stuff. Like, I know I absolutely have that issue at times myself, like either in games or hell even just in our show here a number of times where I have maybe interrupted Sam a couple of times just in a fit of enthusiasm, where I'm like, okay, that's something that I do my best to try to like work on and manage as best as I can. But even with that, it's it still can and does happen. And so I know that is absolutely a thing that can be a present issue at times. But in this particular post, though, it doesn't seem like that's like the case. Like everything every example he gives is of when they literally are having him explain or describe what it is that he is doing and what's going on. So it's like it's not necessarily like he's like overwhelming or like shutting anyone else down or like again, it's not like he's actually harming anything. He didn't actually break anything. Like nothing about this in any way, shape, or form is negative to me. It's like, okay, maybe he was a little unaware of like
I
everyone
mean,
else's
it's
vibe, I guess.
what
But
I don't really understand, and this is me, like I get it, some people are gonna feel the same, but you are playing a game where you make up characters and fight make up monsters in a made up fantasy world where you get to pretend to be something that you're not. And then you're gonna talk about how nerdy someone else is. You're a nerd. It's okay. Like, come on. Like,
I mean, well, he even literally says like, "Oh well, none of the other people at the table really,
we're
delve
not
into
that nerdy.
nerd culture." It's like, bro, this is literally the staple. This thing was so nerdy back in the day that even some nerds were too afraid to play this game because they would get labeled even like uber nerds for this. And you're gonna like tell me like, again, he's kind of mocking him for talking about like anime and stuff, and it's what do you mean? Like how what? And this was posted 5 days ago. This isn't even like an older post. It's like, what
It's
are you
kind of
guys saying? You're
disappointing.
you're
Like,
too good for anime, even though it's literally mainstream pop culture now? Like what? And like some of the other like comments and stuff down here, they're just like, dude responds like, yeah, thankfully in my group we were very fortunate. Most of the horror story players are like about this low stakes. This guy I'd say though falls in the category of wrong group for his play style, but he felt worthy of posting for his lack of awareness, especially after being told directly. It's like, okay, again, maybe he wasn't as aware, but another question I would post is that he wasn't doing anything wrong to be like aware of. He
yeah.
wasn't hurting anybody. The fact that you guys were feeling uncomfortable or weirded out by it seems more strange to me personally when you're literally playing this game and it's like or even more so, like, why is that a problem? Again, what is he actually doing to anybody?
Yeah.
Like he's not like again, I would say like it might be again crossing a line if he literally like starts to try to seduce things and he's like, this is how I have sex with her or whatever. Like it's like that would probably be a bit much. But he's literally just acting out his character. And it's like you guys are saying, you thought that was worthy. This guy apparently, literally at the top, he says, this guy stood out as an obvious first. Like, maybe this post would be a little bit more accurate in like maybe like cringe stories,
Yeah, this is
maybe.
definitely cringy more so than anything.
And even that is debatable whether or not it's really that cringy, all things considered. Like, these guys are just like, I don't know. And I get it. Like Sam said, certain people have different tolerance levels or different amount of levels of like, for volume. Like some people who think that like a person is yelling, it's like they're like I'm not yelling. I'm speaking maybe at a higher, tone, but I'm not actually yelling, but they're like, well, yeah, you are. And it's like, well, a lot of people have varying kind of,
Yeah,
levels or places of,
I
but
self-admittedly, I'm one of those people. I don't like when people talk loud in public spaces and bring attention to me. I don't like
hmm.
it. It's something that bothers me. And it's not that I hate the person, it's just like please stop. And some people just don't have the same wherewithal, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but it's one of those things of like in a D&D game, like maybe if you're playing in a game store, I understand like maybe
I mean,
being a little bit embarrassed, but
even that I wouldn't say because you're in a literal game store playing this game. Like you literally hear other people at
yeah,
other
yeah.
tables.
But like
Like,
it's strangers, you don't know these people or whatever. But like if you're playing online or you're playing at someone's house and you know everybody, what's so embarrassing and weird that you need to react this way? I think it's kind of pathetic to do something like D&D and D and then be like, "Oh, what a nerd. He likes like
Well, that
I don't
or
get
even
it.
like again, write a post about him on Reddit.
It
Like
just seems
literally,
mean.
this that's what I'm saying. It's like this one dude is like, that doesn't sound bad at all, other than just jumping around a little. And OP responds, he's like, well, as I said in a different comment, I would agree. He's really just at the wrong table. However, continuing to act everything out after being told directly to calm down earned him a horror story post. And it's like, what? How does that earn him a horror story post? Like he did apparently sit down, but so you also just wanted him to just literally just stop. You just wanted him to just sit statically and just describe his actions verbally with no enthusiasm. Like it's like again, a lot of the other like comments now are also just all like, honestly, aside from the jumping, I don't think I would mind a person like that on the table at all. And he's like, and another one's like, honestly, I'd love having a player like that at my table because he's clearly enthusiastic to be there. And if pantomiming the actions helps with his immersion, I'm fine with it. And honestly, would probably start pantomiming back at him for my enemy actions. He was like, I thought this was going to be a story about like the party trying to get through a stealth mission without talking, or the DM hitting everyone with a permanent silence spell or something. Because it's like, yeah, it's like this isn't even, what are we even talking about here?
I feel bad for this guy because he's genuinely having fun,
Literally,
and
like
other people just can't let him have fun. I
it's
if it was disruptive to the rest of the
that's
group,
what
like if every
well,
time I go try to do something, then this other character is yelling and fucking running around and distracting me, then that's one thing.
that's what I'm saying.
But that's
Like,
not what they're describing. They're describing
no.
they give him the floor, he does the thing, and then he's done. I don't see the issue with it. I mean, I get it. I guess if you're just kind of there because you like the numbers and you like designing a character and this isn't
Well,
for you, but
well, no,
you're not the
they
one doing
literally
nobody's forcing you to do it. So like let them have
exactly.
fun.
He literally even says the group is roughly 50% in character RP. Like they don't even really. So it's like he's literally RPing. He's doing
Yeah,
what you
let the
guys like to
fuck
do.
let the dude like do what he wants.
Like like
That's so sad to me that we're gatekeeping fun in a
like
D&D game.
literally.
What the
Like
fuck?
I don't even know how to interpret this post really, except
Yeah,
for the fact
that one made me sad
that
when you
this dude
sent
is
it to
just
me.
that these guys are just kind of assholes. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
they're not like it's like you had to write about it on Reddit because the
Hey,
guy was a little enthusiastic. Like what?
hey, enthusiastic guy from Reddit story. If you ever see this somehow, some way, keep doing you because
You are loved.
you'll find a table with a bunch of other people that do this, and y'all are gonna have the best fun. Your sessions may take 4 hours longer than every other other's sessions, but y'all are gonna have a great time.
You're gonna have 4 extra hours of fun than anybody else
Actually, like
has.
you know what's
You know what?
hilarious? I actually like a friend of mine that you've met has done LARPing before and has talked about that compared to D&D. And D.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I like both of them. I'm like, I could not LARP like that.
Sure.
I don't think I have it in me. Maybe one
Fair
day.
enough. You can give it a try.
The
Yeah.
closest I get is being drunk at the Renaissance Fair.
Oh my
And
God, we should totally go
I dress
LARPing. We
up.
should. Yeah.
I don't LARP. I can't do
We
the
should.
accents. I can't keep it up. It's too hot. I can't
You
see.
don't have to do an accent
No, but
necessarily.
I just hang out and get drunk at a Renaissance fair, and I'm wearing period clothing except for my shoes because I haven't bought that yet. But the reality is that a couple years ago, I used to go in t-shirts and like a t-shirt and shorts, and finally I
Mhm.
was like, you know what, fuck it. Bought some shitty stuff
Gonna
from
go the 9 yards.
Amazon.
Yeah, gonna go the 9 yards.
Showed
Let's
up, I
go.
bought like, wooden tankards and belts and pouches,
Yeah.
and the first time I did, I was like, this is gonna be weird. Literally halfway through, I was like, this is awesome.
This is awesome. It's great because everybody does it too. Like there's
Yeah.
so many people who do it. You don't have to
So
get
you need
dressed
to
up, of course.
this guy needs yeah, nobody ever is going to give you shit for that. You need to find other people that do this acquaintance of OP that hopefully you find this video. I You need to find other people that do this because you guys are going to have the best fun.
I'm sure he has. Like he's
I'm
got like
so
he
sorry that
as
these people
somebody
are
who's
assholes to
yeah.
you.
As
Also,
someone who was clearly
if a grown person told me a grown person to sit the fuck down, I'd cold clock them. You'd be missing bottom teeth. Are you fucked? Are you fucked, sir?
well, it's even like you literally
Tell
like
me
again,
this.
they literally snap at him. Like it's not even like they're just like, okay, all right, bud, we appreciate that. If we could just ask you to kind of like relax, like just to tone
That's
it
the thing.
down a
I
little
pull out
bit.
a real sword and I'm gonna hit you.
Like it's like this dude just literally
Ah.
yells at him. Like they say that his member shouted at him. Like why?
Why?
Why did you do that? Why is this bothering you guys
That's so
so much?
that's such fucking pathetic
It's
behavior.
crazy to me. It doesn't make any
You
sense,
don't,
man. And
dude.
it's
Like,
stuff like this. It's like, oh, wow. But you know what? Let's move on for now from that. Let's head up to the next one, Sam, if you want to take that one.
I believe it's the need advice.
Correct. Need advice, beginner player or problem player? Let's find out.
Yeah. Hi, I'm posting this from an alt account since my main account is known by my players and also by my community. I'm a medium-sized Twitch streamer, one of the largest in a small community. Oh, cool. I joined a 5e group as a GM from LFG about a week ago, and we played our first session yesterday, but I'm starting to get more than a little concerned about one of my players. Some background. Okay, now here's the part that this is why it caught our eye at the beginning. Listen to the numbers I say here.
Yeah.
There's me, GM 13 female, Sorcerer 14 male, Warlock 15 male, Mystic 18 male, Paladin 18 male. Huh. And Ranger, the potential problem, 18 male. So, okay, look, I don't want to
So
be a
there's
weirdo. I don't want to be a weirdo, but there's only one girl at the table and she's 13.
yeah.
I will say, I
She's
will
the
say, I will
GM
say,
too.
I will say, if you could hold a table together, good fucking chops on you for that.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say when you guys see like the structure of this whole post, even it also kind of boggles
Oh
my
yeah,
mind. Is she
it's also one
really
of the best
13? Like
grammar.
I'm like,
Gram.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
the
I'm
best.
like, wait a minute. This is like all very like
So
formatted.
here's what also is bothering me. How can you be 13 and have a Twitch channel? But that's just me.
It's not an impossibility, unfortunately,
No,
and
you shouldn't, is what I'm trying to
it's
say.
no, I agree. Like it's not. It's
Now, I will
definitely
give you
not.
credit where you deserve, but you are way too young to be hanging out with adults.
I mean,
I hate to
on
be that guy.
Twitch,
I hate to be that guy. You're 13. Don't hang out with
like
18-year-olds.
that's what I'm saying.
Um,
I mean,
just don't.
the
Just
three
don't.
18-year-olds is a little
It's
like
weird. Hang out with people your age. I don't know.
I mean I guess technically speaking they would
No,
all they could all be in high school together, but it's also like
I doubt it.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
either way.
It's
I'm
highly
weirded out by it.
unlikely.
I'm not trying to insinuate that these people are bad or she is bad. I just don't think this is a good thing. As a generality, if I saw just
Yeah.
this information on a page, I would be terrified of what might happen at a table like that.
Well, even again, just the fact that she is the GM on top of that, all
Yeah.
that's just a strange. That's just a very strange
See,
dynamic. Like,
the other thing,
not that she
okay,
can't be, but just
the
it's
next
just
part is also kind of along that too. The Sorcerer and Warlock, which are the 14 and 15-year-olds, are total beginners. So new that I threw together a couple of one-shots to play as sort of a tutorial with them before the first session. They set up the group originally and had invited Ranger before me. He was originally going to GM for them, but decided he'd rather be a player when I joined. The rest of the group have varying levels of experience. I have GM'd a couple of campaigns for my family, as well as what's a PvP campaign?
I assume it would be maybe like a tournament style kind of thing where the
And
players all fight each other.
an ongoing PF1E campaign?
Pathfinder first edition.
Oh, cool. I just don't know what PvP. Okay. I started with my family as a player when I was 6 or 7, so I'm
Oh,
actually
PvP. I'm not.
PvP. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm actually pretty knowledgeable about the
Oh,
system.
play by post. Play by post. That's what
Okay,
that
there
is.
we go. Though I know Pathfinder better than 5e, Ranger has played a single campaign before, which he says fell apart, and a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. Paladin has some experience with tabletops, but doesn't know 5e super well and has never used Roll20 before. Mystic is very experienced. Yes, he's playing Mystic in 5e, and has definitely been the most
Right.
helpful player in a few different ways so far. I like this. So they have a wide range of experiences.
Yeah.
So to me, what this is screaming is that the Mystic player probably was the original person who's tried to get this group together,
Yeah.
and invited these other people. They ended up inviting the two younger guys because they hadn't played, but they were interested. I just don't know how you find a 13-year-old.
That's what I don't like.
Again,
I
I guess
do because I
the internet's the internet
yeah.
is
No,
the
I was gonna
internet. So
say because
like
plenty of 13-year-olds or even younger 12-year-old like will be on
they,
like D&D Beyond.
I really wish they wouldn't
Find
be.
games. Like I've even literally seen like young people try to join like some of my games or put up posts to
Like,
have games.
that's a quick question. How do you feel about that? Because I
Like
guess depending on the kind of table I had, it would have
I
to be like one of those like, are we all okay with this? And if they're more mature,
yeah, like because I mean even then honestly like I would just
I
kind of
just
prefer not to.
that's hot
Like
water, dude.
my preference would just be no, like just keep it all of a relatively like at the very least adult, like at very least 18 is usually because I like to cuss and swear a lot. I like to just be, like and a
So
lot of
the
my
13-year-olds.
yeah, I know, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I should be around them. Like I because I am also aware too that, like children in my opinion, children are much more, at least in this day and age, like knowledgeable, aware, and I guess mature,
Yeah, but they
quote
shouldn't.
unquote,
I would say more
because they have
exposed to
exposed
things.
is the word,
Not really
because they
mature.
have access, exactly, because they have access to everything in the palm of their
Yeah,
hand
it's just one of
at
these
every
bad
point.
boys.
And any parent who thinks that they're not, I got news for you. They go
Is
to
a bad
school.
parent.
They well,
Yeah,
not even a bad parent, but they go to school. They have friends who
yeah.
probably have this, and they're going to show them all kinds of stuff. Like it just
I
that
guess
is just
it's
what's going to happen. But even with that being said, it's like
the
I
jokes that I make
person
with my friends. I could not make those in front of a child.
I mean, you know, it's like okay, like again, yeah,
It's just a
I'm just of
weird
a mind of like I would just prefer not to. I prefer not to
and
have that
and
particular responsibility or risk or whatever, and just be like, you know, because I've played with kids before, like in a you know, it was more of a like my little brother and like kind of his friends and stuff like that or whatever, like where I've run like a little tiny thing, but they're more personal. You know them, they know you like that. It's not more of like a stranger online kind of thing. So it's
yeah.
like if that's intrinsically different as
I
well.
do like I want to give this person credit and like in no way are we trying to diminish
No,
you
at
being
all.
the age
Like
that you are doing this because like
it's very
honestly
impressive as a matter of
yeah.
fact.
And
Like
also you seem more emotionally mature than half of the stories we read.
exactly. Like, again,
At
even
13.
even the format and the like
I
the
can
way
actually
that
read it.
yeah, like
I struggle reading like badly written stuff. So like it's really it's refreshing, albeit like kind of terrifying.
I mean, again,
But
the biggest
you
part to
shouldn't
me.
be gatekeeped from this hobby just because you're
Oh no
younger.
no 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 no! There's no way, shape, or form that we're saying that you shouldn't
No.
play the game at
No.
all.
I
It's
just
more so just like
it's the
again, just finding the
18.
right group. Like it's just all it already just kind of has essences of red flags. Like again,
I guess this
the
could just go so wrong so quickly if one of these older people decides to do
that's
something
what I'm
wrong.
saying. Well, it's just like again, they set up the group originally and had invited Ranger before her, and he was apparently going to GM for them first.
Until they found another GM,
But
basically.
well, no, but then decided he'd rather be a player when she
Yeah,
joined. So then they were like, okay, I guess maybe she had told them that like,
that
oh,
she
I've
GMs.
GM before, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, then you can GM instead, which is
Yeah.
like,
Which that's actually pretty normal. Some people don't they can GM, but it's
but
not
when
their favorite
she's
thing to do.
13 though, you're
Uh,
like, I don't
maybe
think
their maybe her impression was that good.
I
To
mean,
be
yeah,
fair.
well, clearly, I mean, she seems very mature, even with this that she's done here, but it still just seems kind of weird to me, where you're like, you there's three technical legal adults here, and you would prefer to have a 13-year-old GM for you guys. Like that again, that like I said, maybe they're all technically in high school. They technically could be. They all could technically be in high school at the same time, I
No,
guess.
no. I thought 14 was freshman.
I mean, technically, yeah, but 13, you could like, like
I
again,
guess yeah, you could have a late birthday.
that's what I'm saying. Depending on
That's still
your
fucked,
actual
dude.
birthday,
Dude,
you
that's a
could be
12-year-old.
13
That's one
or
year late.
18. Or you could be 13 or 18 in high school. Like you technically could. So it's like maybe they could be like a D&D club together, technically.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. Like I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
something that just bothers me with this, but
Well,
it's fine. Let's
let's
just continue
continue. Let's
because
continue. Let's just go ahead. Let's get through
all
it.
right, let's. I did way too much prep given less than a week to set up for the first game, and I made sure to treat it as more of a session 0.5 than a session 1. We have a rules channel on our Discord, which includes a number of pretty generic expectations. And I also went over my and everyone else's expectations with our group before even introducing characters. Wonderfully done.
That's crazy.
This is a master class of
Literally,
DMing.
she's killing it. This
Now
is
the part
amazing. I
now
can
onto
understand maybe
the
now why they did want her to GM.
yeah.
Honestly, I'm
Now,
coming
yeah,
around.
obviously it's a bunch of like
I'm kind of coming around now. I'm like, all
stoners
right,
and high
I
schoolers who
see.
are disorganized, and she comes in
Yeah.
like, this is my manifesto
Yep.
of what I'm
Literally,
going to
she's got a
do.
whole like
Binder.
portfolio, a binder, yes, of
Um,
everything.
Now, let's get to the problems. Number one, the Ranger rushed ahead to make our Discord server himself, and I had to ask repeatedly to get permissions in it. It was another difficult ask for him to actually give me ownership of the Discord. Interesting. I would have
Knows
just made a
how to
separate
run
one.
Discord. God
No, well,
damn.
she asked for ownership of the server. I would have just made one myself and invited the players. But let's go to two. Ranger would often step in commandingly to try and answer questions about how the game would be run, and even a question about character creation for other players without consulting me at all. He also blatantly ignored a direction I gave in character creation and got annoyed with other players for following it. It wasn't any kind of crazy ask. I was just telling players they could make PCs different ages from each other. 3, when I posted images of some NPCs, the PCs would know. Ranger repeatedly asked me about one's sexuality. Weird. 4, Ranger started a private group chat with the other PCs to come up with plans, etc., that I would not be privy to. He only asked me if this was okay after Mystic asked him if he had. I later found out he lied and told Mystic that he did ask me before he actually asked me. Yeah. In the private group chat, he told other PCs it would be
Okay.
good to befriend an Alan NPC because he thinks that Alan would make a good boyfriend for his character. I initially said romance is acceptable, but only off screen, since I am not comfortable with that kind of RP. That makes sense considering you're a minor.
You're
In the first,
13. I don't even
in
know if
the
romance would be okay in any
yeah,
capacity.
6, in the first game, I had to repeatedly stop him from backseat GMing. He also regularly took over the spotlight, even accidentally, putting himself in scenes his character isn't in. Number 7, he kept trying to world build in his RP, even going as far as to ad-lib parts of his backstory that he thought would impress the Alan NPC. I'm worried that I'm being a bit paranoid, especially only after one session, so I'm coming here for a second opinion. A new player pretending to be more confident than he really is, or a problem player. Thanks for your time. Sorry to bother. Edit in short discussion with Ranger, where he suggested the only reason people weren't comfortable with the romance instance was because of homophobia. One of our agreed rules bans any kind of racism, sexism, homophobia, etc., and everyone in the server eagerly agreed to do it and went on to deflect and shift goalposts on everything else. He has been banned and blocked. Thank you for the help. So, okay,
I'm just gonna say, even like for a couple of these issues that she outlined, like the Ranger said that he's apparently was like annoyed at the fact that she said that characters can be of different ages. But that also kind of flies in the face. Why are you letting 13, 14, and 15-year-olds then join your game if you care about, if you don't want your characters to be different ages? Like what? Like I'm getting a picture here. Like I was starting. I think I'm forming a picture on why he let her be the GM, because maybe he thought that he could strong arm or bully her into doing the things he wanted to do without being directly responsible. Because again, I will also admit, like, I do enjoy being a player, I'd say, more than a GM. I like GMing, it can be fun, but I do enjoy being a player more because I can really focus and dig in deep to my player or to my character a lot more than I can do necessarily. Because obviously, the goal of the GM is you can have your story, you can have your world and be very in depth with that, but you still do have to focus predominantly on the players
yeah,
and do and give them the thing that they need to in order for them to shine.
yeah. I think the reality is some of these things aren't exactly terrible, like huge red flags. They're more like orange flags.
I
Things
mean,
that you're like
some of them
that
are.
that that they'll like it'll end up getting worse, which is a good reason to just kick them out now. The making the Discord server by himself, having a private chat that he didn't talk to you about until someone basically called him out on it, and then he lied about it. Um, and then forcing a romance. So, look, we all can agree playing a game. Usually, I would say playing a game, we're all adults. So, romance can be there, but obviously, there has to be boundaries for it.
Yeah, and
Now,
mutual
now,
consent.
now, um,
She's 13.
now that doesn't romance
She's
technically doesn't
13.
romance does not have to be explicit,
No,
and
no,
and
it,
and
it
to
can be
and
just it can be sweet,
it can be
it,
sweet
it can
and
be it can be
uh,
cute.
loving someone doesn't have to be a physical explicit
No, it
relationship,
doesn't have to be like
especially not
yeah,
on a
like you said.
tabletop game. And the reality is that you can totally roleplay having a crush on a character or be slightly nervous around a character because you might have feelings for them, stuff like that. I've done that before. It's
Yeah,
never led to anything. I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't even think there's
true,
necessarily a
fair
problem
enough.
with that in this scenario, as long as nothing's explicit. Because the reality is that you're just pining after a character, it's fine. But the moment you try to push, when someone
Okay.
says, "Hey, we agreed we're not doing
I
this," the
mean,
moment you push, you are in the wrong. And this dude was going to make it worse. I have a feeling it was going to be worse. They were going to try to push explicit stuff. They were going to try to
it
put
sounds like it.
outside the
Like
boundaries because they wouldn't listen to the rules anyway. So I think this 13-year-old girl who, again, what?
she's killing
Um,
it. She's
you're
killing it.
doing
Like all of
fine.
this stuff,
I
dude.
I I wish other people. I don't know if you just took a writing, like writing 101 or something.
I'm not even
Um,
writing, but just even like how she explains, like she was like, "Thanks for your time. Sorry for the bar." Like she sounds so sweet, and it's like I honestly, after reading this post, I'm less against having her as a part of my group now. I'm honest, I am. Like, despite where I'm just like, I'm like, she sounds like she would be a delightful person to hang out with and play this game with, despite the very, very kind of like vast age difference. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I still don't think I could really do it, but it's still like,
I love this.
okay.
I was really stupid in a lot of ways at age 18, but strong arming a 13-year-old and asking questions about sexuality for his social activity? Nope, not that kind of stupid. Glad you kicked
Like,
that guy. That's not how an 18-year-old should interact with a 13-year-old.
no, it's just not. Like, it's
Oh, they replied to their. I hope it didn't come off as condescending. My point was that he should and doesn't know better. Oh,
and
and that's
that's his
his
problem.
problem.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of contradictions in his whole thing because again, if he wanted so much control, then he should have been the one to GM. Like again, the only real like logic I'm finding here is that he wanted her to GM and chose the youngest player, I guess, because not only she said maybe that she was more experienced, but she's not as experienced in 5e though, more so Pathfinder. But he also, I guess, maybe thought that he could strong arm her into just doing what he wanted to, which is still just icky because she's 13.
Icky.
It's like there's a lot. There's just a lot. There's a lot problematic here, and a lot just like. No, luckily, let's all just take, I think, a collective moment to breathe a sigh of relief that it didn't actually get to that place, though. Okay, it didn't. Like, let's
Yeah.
just can we all just be thankful for that? I think for just a second, where we're just like, okay, yeah, this was a bit awkward. The dude is clearly very immature, especially compared to an incredibly mature and capable 13-year-old girl. Good for her. Uh, but yeah, so let's, you know what? We'll chalk this up as a win. She definitely problem player. Or maybe just needs to be told like, hey, bro, check yourself a little bit, my dude. If you wanted to do all this stuff, then you should have been the GM. Otherwise, you got to listen to a 13-year-old now. So there you go. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. And here we are at part 2 of the previous post of Am I the Asshole for having an issue that my player or that my character died. This is going to be a little bit more now enlightening of kind of the overall vibe and theme at the table more as a whole rather than just simply the OP's, character and
This
choices
is
and stuff.
the continuation of that other story.
Essentially, this is now his experience with his second character here. And it is just, if not even more frustrating as the first in a numerous ways. So, DM treats my character unfairly. I have a panic attack when DM says my character is going to get scalped. Hey, I'm back. This story concerns the way that my character has been treated over the past year, a year of playing in a campaign, the same one that this story happened in. This is mostly an info dump about how my second character in this game was treated poorly compared to the rest of the party. Sorry if it's long. For context, I am one of 3 players and the youngest in the group. I am on the autistic spectrum and suffer with other mental health issues. The other players will be referred to as Bard and Warlock, and I am playing a Blade Singer Wizard. This is not to reflect poorly on the Blade Singer subclass at all. We use a custom lingering injuries table. Great, already a bit of a red flag there. The effects of which happen on either a critical hit or if a player character goes down. This table includes some minor debuffs that are cleared with healing, but also dismemberment and other devastating effects that require regeneration to heal. Again, already not sounding great. We also use a very incorrect version of the spell divination, where you can ask literally anything and get an answer, not just questions involving potential future events or whatever. DM was the one who assured us that divination worked in this way during another game that was running simultaneously. He was a fellow player in that game and the only one who used the spell. But I ended up catching the error after both games had been running for a long time. In the other game, we stopped using it that way, but in this one, DM said that the spell would continue to work this way. I kind of feel bad for the Dungeon Master in the other game because DM would abuse the spell to speed run plot points constantly and also ask questions that gave more information than it should have. He would ask something like, what are all the abilities of the members of X faction? And the poor Dungeon Master would just give it to him. Because when asked if that is how the spell worked, the DM would get defensive and insist that that is how it worked. I know now that we should have looked it up, but nobody thought to until I was trying to find ways around the spell in DM's game, as it was constantly used against my character. Like, even right away, what are you, like, dungeon masters, fellow players, even? Like, here's the thing, okay? I know there's a shit ton of stigmatism or stigma and issues against, rules lawyers and stuff like that.
What? No, what?
Yeah, talking about you, bud, over there. You got your Tyler right there for everybody. But ironically, they are rather helpful to a certain extent in situations exactly like this. There is nothing wrong. Like I will say, obviously, there's a limit and a point, right? Rules lawyers are issues and problems when they become so inherently like accusatory or contradictory, not contradictory, conflicting, and just like wanting to constantly like shut any and every idea down to the absolute letter, right? That can get annoying and bogs things down and can make things unfun. But they come in super handy when people are also trying to abuse certain spells, mechanics, or other things to only really their benefit, to basically cheating. In this instance, it should be okay. Like, again, because it's like him saying, this is how the divination spell works. And the GM being like, you just get to know, yes, just double check. There's nothing wrong with especially with spells. Spells can have a lot of text. The word and verbiage of what is used in them can be misconstrued or misinterpreted all the time. Even when you have used the spell a ton before, sometimes you just misremember. And so it's okay to just double check to be clear and sure of what the spell description actually is saying.
Yeah.
Don't just take people's word for it all the time. Unless, again, and I get it. In this situation, he's probably at least been shown to or even made the claim of being like the most experienced and knowledgeable. And so you're like, oh, well, why would we question that? And it's like, well, another thing I would ask though is, don't you also want to like be a little bit more knowledgeable about the game to help it run more smoothly, to be a little bit more like quick and be able to help out too, basically being like, oh hey, yeah, I have this knowledge, I have this thing here for you, or even just look it up to be sure, like that. So much things could be resolved and handled so much quicker and easier if just we're going to continue. So, speaking of how I was treated with the divination spell, more than once I did something carefully, only for it to turn out that an NPC used divination to ask who did it and find out that it was me. These same NPCs didn't do this when my character was framed for stealing a 10,000 gold necklace that belonged to the lord of our town, that has a church full of clerics capable of divination, when it could have proven my character's innocence. No NPCs use this spell to catch any other player character doing anything unsavory, even when they could have reasonably had the means to do so. Bard often does shady crimes and was the one to frame my character for the necklace. Bard and Warlock were participating in an underground fighting ring that used slaves, and my formerly enslaved character tried to get the ring shut down. I directly named Bard as someone who was involved to some NPC allies of ours, but Bard convinced them that I was making it up. In the end, I was forced to give up about caring about slaves because I believe Warlock in particular threatened my character. And Warlock has killed multiple people. But NPCs just turn a blind eye unless the DM knows my character can get in trouble for something. Once again, another huge red flag, right? So this, in my mind, showcases that in the previous post, the first post, like OP says that they had a lawful evil wizard, right? This to me shows that this is just this is an evil campaign. All the characters are evil to some extent. All of that stuff is clearly straight up freaking evil. There is no way to say or debate otherwise. No, it's not neutral. No, it's not like this. This is clearly just straight up evil. And so that brings to question then a lot of the things that OP did in the previous post about how his previous wizard behaved or acted. That brings up some questions about, okay, well, why was OP's character punished so much then? If all of them are doing messed up, screwed up shit, why is OP the only one that really seems to be facing so-called consequences for said messed up actions? because they all seem to be doing it. So what's going on here? Again,
Yeah, what's happening?
things are starting to stink extremely more at this point with all of them. So he goes on to say, this was just poor luck. But because of the fact that my character acted as a dodge tank of the party, I was critically hit and knocked unconscious out of most of the time out of the group. And I always rolled something on the table that would result in dismemberment or disfiguration. We were at a level at the time where nobody could cast the regeneration spell in the party. Warlock had cleric levels primarily, but not enough to cast regenerate without a scroll. So I would often be stuck with the injuries for a long period of time. It got bad enough that I had several magical prosthetic parts in my bag just in case I lost a leg or whatever. Like, what the It especially sucked because I had a cloak of displacement, and the DM would often roll 2 nat 20s on my character with disadvantage, pulling his dice tray out from behind his screen to show me with a big grin on his face. Maybe he was fudging rolls. Maybe it was cursed luck. Maybe it was the fact that he always used enemies with several attacks to fish for crits. Who knows? But it sucked. Like, once again, why are you just taking his word for it? He is rolling behind a DM screen. If you're saying he often somehow gets double nat 20s on disadvantage, the first time I'd be like, okay, sure. All right. It's not impossible. It isn't. I've seen it happen before myself. I have. That being the case, it happens again. Okay, I'm gonna need you to start rolling in front out here in front of everybody real quick if we're gonna do that. Okay, you cannot roll behind the screen if you're saying that you actually got double nat 20s at disadvantage again. Okay, no, it happens a third time. My dude, my man, my friend, homie, blood. Like, let me tell you. Okay, he is trying to kill you. He is targeting you. Okay? I'm sorry. The statistic probability of that being the case is astronomically small. It's not impossible, believe me. We've all seen it before. I've literally gotten like 4 natural 1s in a row and like three
Yeah.
natural 20s in a row. It happens. It does. It's not impossible. But in this kind of thing, along with all the other evidence that has been showcased, no. God, just any amount of questioning, any amount of like just thinking and standing like, and I get it. You're on the autistic spectrum or you're neurodivergent. Hey, I got news. So am I. All right. So is Sam. Like we all kind of have that, and it obviously it varies drastically and vastly. But it's like even that, like let's continue. The big incident that showed to me how I was being treated was when it was revealed that my character's love interest, now named James for simplicity purposes, was selling the party's information to our enemies. James felt bad and came clean to my character about it. And I had my character break things off with him and told him that I wouldn't pursue him in exchange for information on our enemies as well, but that I couldn't guarantee his safety from either Bard or Warlock, which shows again, they're probably freaking evil. He vanished, but when I used locate creature to see if he actually left, the DM told me I sensed 3 of him around town. I told the other party members what happened, and they decided to lure him back, getting me to agree to act as a damsel in distress to get him to try to save me. We ended up capturing him, and I was convinced to go get the guards. What Bard and Warlock didn't tell me was they wanted to beat up James, and Warlock even tortured him by eating some of his fingers and biting huge chunks out of him. What?
Yeah,
What? What?
I don't.
I brought back the guards and they dragged James off to prison. What is happening right now? Like this again. Like I just like he's like again. He said he's bad at reading social cues, but bro, my man, my brother, my dude, just oh my good lord. Okay, I role played my
Okay.
character being mortified at what happened. Good for you. And managed to convince the guards to get a healer to visit James in prison. A few days passed in game, and we found out that he was managing to make some money in prison with a plan to bribe someone to break him out soon. Bard convinced him to make a map of the enemy group's lair in exchange for enough money to break love interest out of prison. Bard ended up going back on the promise, not paying the full amount owed, and told my character about this. I shouldn't have done anything, but I made the mistake of having my character pay James the remaining owed amount. With the money, he broke out of prison. Why shouldn't you have done it? They've done horrible things to this guy. Like, this is where the unfair treatment started. DM decided that James' first order of business was to hire an unending torrent of assassins, specifically for my character, and completely ignore the people that both masterminded the scheme to capture him and that tortured him. I think we ended up fighting like 5 assassins. Each time we killed one, another would just show up. In fact, there was basically a whole adventuring party dedicated to killing specifically my character. And my character was, in fact, killed multiple times, but the party thankfully brought me back. Are you really? Is it thankful? Should you be thankful? But it was a huge financial drain on me. Oh, wow. Geez. And each time an assassin took something from the body. Wow. One tore out his tongue through his throat. One took an ear, and another managed to kill my character by blowing up the entire adventuring guild we were stationed in. This time, the DM laughed to himself and said, I think we agree that if you get regeneration, it doesn't regrow hair, right? Then proceeded to tell me that the assassin would scalp my character's body. I actually had a panic attack as he unknowingly hit a very specific trigger that I've had as a kid. What? And I begged him to do literally anything else. He generously settled for just removing my character's genitals instead. This was the last straw for the group as we realized that James/GM would not stop sending assassins to kill specifically me until either James died or I wasn't revived anymore. What? What is even happening? Like, I also don't understand Bard or Warlock's players, because in the other post, Warlock or Bard, who I don't even know which one, apparently said that they were remorseful or felt bad about killing his previous character, but then they're doing stuff like this. Like, I don't. Oh my god! And again, the GM, like you, like clear, like Ooh, okay. Also, James ended up messing with Bard and Warlock, just not with assassins. Bard's favorite NPC was mind controlled, but easily broke the enchantment and caught the random mage who was hired to do it. And Warlock's favorite NPC was attacked while we were all there to help. Both issues were resolved in less than a session, and James never messed with them again. I'm not going to go into every detail about how he managed to find the place James went to, but know that it was on a floating island that was constantly moving. Divination didn't answer where it was because there was literally no landmarks or anything to compare its location to, and research revealed absolutely nothing about the island. What is that? Fucking flag number 5,578 at this point with the GM. We ended up managing to scry on James, then teleport there. But DM got mad after the session, saying it was also supposed to be immune to scrying, but he forgot, and then decided to not retcon what happened. In my opinion, it seems like he didn't want us to find this island ever, and he also made it so that James had unlimited food, water, and anything else he needed to stay there forever. So, how are we supposed to resolve this? Who knows? You weren't. It is obvious you were not. It is obvious he was just trying to murder you multiple times, or as many times until you just stayed dead and made a new character so that he could then torture you as that character too. Anyways, we go to this castle, and I had prepared a very specific tool to help us beat James. He was a scribe wizard, so I figured he would have a ton of traps, scrolls, etc. In a previous session, DM had an artificer with a magic vacuum that could be used to suck up magical traps and the like. I had asked the NPC if I could borrow it. We went on a quest to get a new power source for the vacuum and was given the vacuum. I was told that it had a limit to how much it could absorb, like a certain amount of magic charges, and absorbing levels of spells used charges. And after that, it would explode. Seemed reasonable, right? Not really. Maybe. I don't know anymore. I figured it was probably going to be like 50 to 100 damage, and even if it severely damaged me, I could reduce the damage with one of my Blade Singer abilities. Plus, I roll really high on deck saves. And also, it would hit James for the same amount. Win-win. So we got into the fight with James, and I rushed directly to him and point that vacuum directly at him and turn on. What I was not told was that it would continue to absorb magic even beyond the initial threshold, and that extra magic would directly affect how much damage the explosion did, at about 8 damage per singular charge over capacity. So DM sits there for like 10 minutes with a calculator, then shows me the result. Over 1,000 damage. He rules that it explodes, disintegrating James, myself, and everything in a 30-foot radius. In the end, the party wasn't going to get anything for all the effort we went through because we confronted James in the same room as all the treasure. I begged him to at least reward the other players, and he ended up relenting and giving them a couple things. He told me that my character would need true resurrection if I wanted him back, and even then, I would have to start over with literally nothing. I ended up deciding to bring him back because I played him for over a year and was not going to let DM finally get away with his plan to kill my character after over a month of endless assassination attempts. I ended up owing the party like 25,000 gold and spent the past several months crawling out of the financial pit my wizard was put in. Even now, my current gear isn't as good as it was, but oh well. Oh, well. What? Oh, want to know the best part? Bard ended up bringing James back with a true resurrection as well. Thankfully, the DM decided that James was over his whole thing against my character and he just left me alone. God. Edit, forgot context that Bard brought James back to help us with a quest later. I think part of the deal was that James would leave us alone afterwards, maybe? Also, wish me luck, but this campaign is wrapping up and DM wants to run a pirate game. End post.
I'm so sorry.
Oh God. Just God. Oh my God. I feel like I don't know. I almost have no words now. Like after all, I took like 75 psychic damage
So,
from reading
I,
that.
I mean, what I will say is the first part of this story, like I kind of blame them both. I still blame I still blame to a degree OP, but the fact that you played in this game for a year after the last post and you going through all this shit and you didn't just say, "Oh, gotta go." I do not understand. For the life of me, I can't understand because it's just shit. There is not a single positive thing in this post. Not one single positive aspect of this post that could lead me to believe that yes, it would be a good idea to keep playing with these troglodytes. So I don't like
they're
I get
all a
it.
bunch of freaking degenerates.
Like I get it. I get the whole like, oh, I'm autistic or I don't understand certain things.
I
Stop
I
you need to understand this at least is that this is not okay and you need to
I
leave.
mean, he's not even having fun though. He literally. I mean, okay, so there's a comment. The top comment is like, if this is real, then you should never, ever, ever play with any of these people ever again. And then the OP goes, I will at least say that Bard and I have talked through what happened and that she was the one who encouraged me to write this post. She and I attempted to talk to DM about everything a bit over a month ago too, but he kept interrupting and dismissing me. I'm hesitant to play in the Pirates game, but I'll leave if things are anything close to how they were in this game.
No.
Bard's on my side, and she stood up for me as of late. She's also a great dungeon master herself and is running a fun game too. Warlock's just kind of existed. He's got his own issues I didn't really touch on in this post. You touched on it a little bit. That dude literally tortured and bit off like ugh, what are
just
you
just
talking
just
about?
what? Just what? You can end it there.
Even Bard, you're saying, oh, she stood up for you. She did get rich. Like, you say she's a great GM and running a fun game too after she literally framed you for a 10,000 gold. She did all of these things to you.
Well, that okay, wait. But there are certain things you can separate from character in person and certain things you can't. I don't think the bard was picking on this person specifically. The
No,
DM
but here's
was
the thing.
definitely.
he literally stipulated multiple times. He's like, he never wanted to do anything to his fellow player characters. Not directly, anyway. Like, he was never the one that deliberately did something to his fellow player characters, except for trying to shut down a slave ring. That was the only thing, and it wouldn't even necessarily have been directly to them.
I would
And
just
on top of that, Bard then told, I believe it was Bard, told their guild master about the things that he did to get him kicked out of the guild, even though she apparently does horrible things too. Like, nobody here
stop playing with these people.
is your friend, my dude. If you ever somehow see this post, see this video, they're not your friends. None of them are.
If you really like, if you see this somehow and it's you and you have some way of proving that, you reach out to us, because like I would put time aside to run a game for
Please,
you,
yes,
so you
please.
don't have to deal with people being terrible.
And you know what it's like to act like you guys are good. Again, it's clearly, and the problem is though, he hasn't even stipulated that it's been an evil campaign. He hasn't. He just said it's a campaign. So I don't even know if he said it was an evil campaign or if he just said this was a campaign. Let me tell you something. That is not a normal campaign that you're playing in right now. It's not.
Nope. No.
This is bad.
Really
this
bad.
is so bad.
I want you to experience like a normal D&D game. So you have something. So you have, because I get it. If this is all you've done in D&D, then you don't know any better, and that make it even harder considering what you said you struggle with. If you had something to compare it to, I think it would be a lot easier for you to figure out where the red flags are. Because as you've said, your social cues are not up to par. So maybe you're not sensing the red flags the way that we are reading this. But the reality is, listen to the people in the comments, because pretty much all of them are on the same side as we are. If by some miracle you see this, OP, I know this is the throwaway account, but I don't know, hit us up or something. You have to play in a normal game that isn't negative and you being bullied for 3-4 hours at a time, because you need something to compare it to, so that you can understand it when you join a new game, whether or not it's a good fit for you. And the only reason I'm saying it in that way is because I get it. Not everybody's on the same page with this kind of stuff. And there is no reason that because you're not on the same page with this kind of stuff that you can't enjoy this hobby just like the rest of us. But you had found quite possibly the worst table for you. I would say don't play with the Bard anymore, or any of them. I'm not saying you can't be. You're not saying you can't be friends outside of that with some of them, but the reality is you should not be playing a game with them.
Don't play with them. Do not play with them.
Okay. This is not good.
I'm sorry. It's just there's too much bad. Like there is too much bad precedence. There's like, again, if she was really your friend. Okay, it's nice of her to be the one to encourage you to post about this, I guess,
and to stand up for you. We might be missing some context here
maybe,
on why things happen,
and to talk with her like about,
like that's maybe the Bard isn't so bad, and maybe the things that happen at the table, some of them don't have the context that we need to accurately make that description. But the reality is, at least someone stuck up for you. At least someone encouraged you to get these things out on paper and go get through, because it can be helpful, it can be therapeutic, but the reality is like,
I feel like he's developing Stockholm syndrome.
You need to do some soul searching here and figure out if this is really right for you, and I don't think that this game is right for you.
I mean, absolutely, this group ain't right for him for sure.
You need to find a better group with more understanding people who are not picking on you for some reason, which I still haven't figured out why. Like in the first post, a lot of it was like the DM probably just hated your character, but now I think the DM just hates you personally, and the other players don't seem to give a shit. Which isn't good and not really an avenue.
They're literally being like, "Oh, your character owes the party 25,000 gold and doesn't get his stuff back." I got news for you.
That's not
Magic
normal.
items don't freaking just destroy from an explosion. That's the point. They're almost indestructible.
Even if disintegrate, because you can kill them, you can destroy them with disintegrate. But the reality is,
it literally says magic items are not affected by disintegrate.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay,
no,
cool.
Magic items do not get destroyed by disintegrate.
Nice. Okay, so I'll put it this way. Even if by some fucking weird method all of your items were destroyed, I've had that scenario in games before where like one player doesn't have a lot and the rest of the party comes together.
That's what I'm saying.
Having an entirely equipped party is better.
The fact that
you owing people money, here's
the problem though. Here's the problem. Evidently, they're all against each other. It seems like
it seems like also not conducive.
It seems like they're not really part of a party. It seems like it
Yeah.
almost seems like they are all adversaries or rivals or something because again, none of them have done anything to really help one another.
Which is also not how this is supposed to work either.
It's a cooperative story
Right,
driven.
you can have a tournament style, game where everyone's
Well, you
against
can,
each
yeah,
other.
we just said that. That's usually like what maybe a multi-shot at most, where you
But
literally just fight each other.
this is
But
weird.
working literally at opposite 10 almost interest at time, like
This is just very strange,
this
and
is anathema to everything D&D
it can't be good for you
actually
mentally.
is or should be, in my opinion.
You've talked about, struggling with autism, struggling with mental health issues. This cannot be helping your mental health issues
That's
by
what I'm
any means
saying, bro.
necessary.
That's what I'm
Like
saying.
I've gotten to points in D&D where like because things didn't go the way I wanted it to, or like, you have arguments with people that you care about because you played with them for so long that it affected me mentally. And that's a shitty feeling to have. But that's I got over that. I figured out what was bothering me and had a discussion with people like an adult. This cannot be healthy for you. Not to like armchair therapist this, because I'm definitely not a psych major or have any knowledge in that department aside from what's wrong with me. But the reality is, like, from my perspective, this cannot be healthy for you. The longer you do this, the worse it's going to be. And I urge you to find a different group with more accepting people, because this just seems like a shit show. And please do not play in the fucking pirate campaign.
Don't, please don't.
Please,
Good
because
God.
pirates, by definition, do fucked up shit, and you're gonna make a decision, and you're gonna get put in a fucking hole again, and then you're gonna be like, "What did I
They're
do?"
not even make a
And then
decision. The GM is just going to do the utmost horrendous, disgusting, messed up crap he possibly can think of
yeah,
to them.
it's already happened.
And just don't put yourself through. That's not worth it, dude. It just isn't. It just isn't. Uh yeah. You know what? Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the last story here. We're gonna try and do our best to do a bit of a palate cleanser from that last one because I don't want to go out on that last one. That last one is just depressing. It is honestly just
Well, this one's kind of lighthearted.
it is, and it does at least initially seemingly has a happy ending.
Yeah.
Maybe,
All right.
possibly.
So
Question mark. Let's
this
do
last
it.
story is the tale of how I managed to escape the formation of a that guy. Um, this is my first time ever submitting a horror story, but I've been listening to a lot of RPG horror story videos, mainly from Crispy's Tavern. Thank you for shouting someone out, and thought that this would be a fun
Crispy's
story
Tavern
to
is
tell.
cool.
I have not watched them. Not so much a horror story, more like how I managed to avoid a horror story. I'm a first-time GM about to run a Pathfinder campaign. Our session 0 is next Thursday. Wow. Wish me luck.
Good luck, bud.
Set in a home. Yeah, you got 2 more days. Set in a homebrew setting where most of the world is flooded with water. Ooh. There are no actual continents, just small islands. Very Pirates of the Caribbean, since I had binged those movies around the time I had the idea for the campaign a while ago.
Cool,
I
cool.
offhandedly mentioned wanting to start a campaign to a friend, and then a friend of that friend asked if they can join, and suddenly now I have a group wanting to play together. Neat. I give everybody the laydown on the setting, and one player becomes really enthusiastic with their character concept. And that enthusiasm quickly rubs off on me, since it felt really awesome to have a person already invested in the world. I get everything sorted with him, but I'm still feeling that it should talk about the campaign. So I talked to another guy in the campaign, a very close friend of mine, besties even. We know things about each other that no man should ever know. That's how close we are. I like the context here. I talked to him a bit in person
Okay.
about his character. He says he wants to play a former pirate captain that lost his position after a mutiny. I say sure, but add on that his character should probably not have been a captain for that long since we would be starting off at level 3. There you go. You're tempering expectations because you should tell more of the story after, not before. He's fine with
Yeah.
this and tells me that he'll send me more about his character over Discord. We parted ways and all was well until I got that faded message. Later that day, he sends me a very long text describing his character's backstory, saying that ever since he was a child, he would find any animal he could and torture them. All right, content warning here.
Yeah.
This is
Just
some this is some serial killer activity.
straight, literal that. Yeah.
This is some what's
Just
the recent show that they made?
there's so many.
The one who
What
kills people
Dex?
in Milwaukee.
Oh, I forgot. No, I'm not
You
sure.
know, the guy that kills gay black men in Milwaukee.
He sounds familiar, but
It's one of the big serial killers. God damn it. white
Not
guy.
not Ted Bundy, no.
No, no, the other one, the less confident one.
No, I'm blanking on him right
I know, I
now.
can't remember. It'll might come to me. But that was his whole thing. He started torturing animals at a young age. Um,
I mean, all of them basically did.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
literally a staple of
Yeah.
serial
Find
killers.
any animal he could and torture them, and that he eventually moved on to larger animals. And rodents like capybaras are close relatives. Why the capybaras, man?
And then
That
close relative. Wait, he says larger animals and rodents, like capybara or close
well,
relatives.
close relatives to that animal.
Oh, okay. I
Something
thought
like
he
a
was.
capybara.
I thought he was talking about his own family.
Vis-a-vis giant rats,
Yeah,
vis-a-vis ferret,
I thought he was really
big
talking about his
ones.
own relatives and family. Like,
Groundhogs, prairie
Jesus.
dogs.
Once that one,
Yeah,
that's a huge step up. And
I
two, you
know.
think of them like
Capybaras
rodents?
and my immediate family.
God.
And he eventually moved on to larger animals. Oh, and his desire to torture those creatures would soon grow numb, and he would find it tedious, and so naturally he moved on to killing and murdering his family
Oh,
in the
there it
night,
is. There
eventually
it is.
becoming a
Okay.
pirate and inheriting the ship after the captain died, and then getting mutinied because the crew soon grew fearful of him.
All right. At least
All right,
we had a natural
all
progression.
right,
It
look at
wasn't an
the okay,
immediate jump.
wonderful, like backstory complete. I took a moment to process this, collected my thoughts,
Please
and sent him
do.
the message word for word. Okay, so I have some notes.
Yeah,
I
man.
then
Just a few
Which I like this.
speech.
I really like this approach. I then explained how this character could potentially be a horrible idea.
Okay.
Not exactly like that, of course. I wanted to be polite and keep an open mind. Mainly mentioning that
I
I want
respect it.
a more light-hearted campaign, that the character concept could very easily lead down the murder hobo route if he wasn't careful, and also that there's a very high chance that this character, as he was at the moment, would cause a lot of conflict in the party. Still, I was very open, telling him that he didn't need to get rid of all of the edge, just some of it. His response was as paraphrased. I definitely didn't consider the murder hobo thing. I honestly just got caught up in my own story, but I'll keep that in mind as I add on to it. I belted a sweet sigh of relief as I dodged that fatal bullet. And that, my good fellows, was how communication saved this character from the horrible, horrible fate of Murder Hobo. Thank you for reading. Edit. Hate the fact that I have to make an addendum. Please don't make assumptions about my friend just based on his edgy Pathfinder character. This was his first time making a TTRPG character, and we haven't even had our session 0 yet. He's a very chill and understanding dude IRL, so stop assuming the worst about him. Again, thank you for taking your time to read my little post. Now, I can say in my experience, I actually have had not this exactly, but something similar happened before in a less serial killery vibe. But I've played in games where people who were friends of, the DM or a player or someone that were just at the house at the time we were playing were like, "Oh, can I join?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they'll
Uh
roll up,
huh.
we'll give them a quick character sheet and they'll, come up with a voice or whatever, and their immediate instinct is to make a shit stir. Someone who's quick to fight and throw things at people and call people names and be an absolute menace to everyone around them. And I think it comes from that instinct to do things you can't do in real life.
Absolutely. I was gonna
And
say that. I was gonna
we've
say
talked
exactly
about this
that.
before, albeit the serial killer vibes is a little bit worrying.
I mean
But
that.
again, it's not the worst we've seen here, even.
Well, because he didn't really get an opportunity to kind of
No, but like
flesh it out. But
we've literally read stories about people who went through with this and more.
yes, yeah.
At least this is just killing things and not doing weird sexual stuff or
I don't
whatever.
know if he would have stopped there though. Like it
No, but
started at that, but it could have
you never
evolved
know,
or rather
obviously.
devolved. I mean, how I feel about this is it's like I don't. He literally says he didn't think of the murder hobo route. And I don't understand how that is possible because he literally already has that in his backstory. Like I don't understand. Like his he didn't even really have a justification except for the fact that it was just like, oh yeah, him my character basically like he was just a child and he just had this inane desire to just kill and torture. Not even kill things, but torture them. What? Why? What? Why? Why? What does that do? Why would you want that? What is the plan here? That's what I would honestly, I'd be super interested to know. What is the plan here for your character? What exactly are you looking for them to transform into? Are you looking for them to be like of, again, a literal psychopathic serial killer dude who sees the error of his ways as he has already systematically murdered astronomical amount of people and lives with nary a care before. Like, what is the goal aside from literally just giving yourself a backstory reason to be a murder hobo? Like, that is the only thing that I see that this can do for you. I don't see anywhere this character can go. I don't. Like, it emotionally,
It would have the
mentally.
I mean the only direction in the game that's not an evil campaign is a redemption arc, but
But
that's
I'm saying, I don't. How can this character be redeemed? He never saw he,
there's
because again, it's not even like he did it like Dexter, right? If he made the character like the show Dexter, where he's like a serial killer that kills serial killers, where it's like he has these urges, but he's trying to direct them in a more,
or
I guess, positive or
or like
more,
a, or like a character that had some sort of curse
yeah,
or
or
some sort of thing that was out of their control
but
and that what
but
they did was not really within their realm of
even
control.
then, I don't necessarily like that because then
I mean, that's
unless.
literally a Asterion, but
Yeah, well, Astarion still though, like with obviously a new thing, he can control if he actually kills somebody. He doesn't have to unless a
but he
horrible,
likes to.
unless his master he likes to because he's been desensitized to it at this point.
Exactly.
Because like his master tells him to, but he also is the type that's like, hey, if it doesn't serve his purposes, he's not going to do it. If it's not productive, he doesn't do it. And he also does have some empathy for
He has
certain
some
things and people.
very
Like
specific empathy.
he is not just a psychotic serial killer murderer dude. Like he
Right.
actually has like a much
But
more understandable reason of what happened to him, and also he's a person still too underneath all of the monsters. So
there are ways to write a murderous character on a redemption arc that can be saved into a better character, learn from mistakes and learn from their past. And
absolutely,
this is not it.
100. This is not it.
No, it's
Again, as I'm saying, his backstory gave no room for any kind of like
no.
what was this character supposed to be? Where were you supposed to
Yeah.
go
I
with
do
this
love
guy
the
aside from just continuously murder?
the comment, yo, this man wanted to play a straight up serial killer. What?
Exactly. It's literally what it
such a
was.
It's such
I
a
don't.
like genuine reaction to something like this. And like I get it. People just kind of let their brain flow sometimes, but good on you for
Dude,
stopping it.
hang on. No. Hang on. There's a little comment. He's like, so who else thinks we haven't heard the last of this guy? The OP goes, even if this story gets worse, I'm not going to post anything else to this subreddit, honestly, because the people in these comments have been doing nothing but assuming the worst of my friend, and it's very annoying. I still don't understand, why are you still calling them like friend print? Like, why don't, like, okay. And then another comment goes, I mean, your friend came up with the backstory of a serial killer. A little judgment is to be expected. And she's like, I can think of like 90 newbie artist characters with the exact same backstory. Can you though? People like to make edgy characters, and also the things a person comes up with does not reflect on their person. It a little bit does, because there's always a little bit of yourself in every character that you make in this game. The serial killer he may or may not have made isn't real, and he can't hurt you. Like, no, he can't physically hurt, but why would he want to play a character exactly who explicitly tortures help? Like, exactly. Why would someone want to inhabit that mental space, let alone think others would be comfortable interacting with it? That's a great question. OP still defending, probably because he thought the idea would be interesting to play. Sometimes people can portray characters that aren't similar to them. What a freaking shocker. Also, as I mentioned in the story, he said himself that he forgot about the other players and was just thinking about his own story. When he remembered that fact, he pulled back and said he would change it. I don't I don't understand. Like, I'm also flabbergasted on why is the OP defending him so vehemently? Like, even if
They're
you
close, yeah.
like him, but it's like, it's like, she like acknowledge the truth of it. Like, she's not wrong, all right? People can absolutely, like, actors do it all the time in shows and movies, right? You can absolutely portray a screwed up, messed up, just despicable, diabolical character. And you could be an amazing, great, nicest person ever. And it absolutely can be incredibly interesting and fun, even to explore those aspects of, like, the human psyche and place or whatever. But I ask you, this is clearly not the campaign for it. And the fact that he, for some reason, got completely caught up in his own shit without thinking about anything or anyone else,
I mean,
that's
that's
that lends credence a little bit, though, to, like, again, why did he think that this was the campaign for that? Like, this isn't an evil campaign. And you have to be able to, anyone in their right mind can acknowledge this is literal serial killer behavior. So again, like, that's what I'm saying. I ask, where was he planning to go with this character? I don't understand, aside from just continuously to be an actual full blown killer. Like, I don't see it. I don't see, especially nothing in his backstory that he said. He was like, yeah, this is all the stuff that he already did. What is his motivation now then? What is he motivated to do at this point? Does he see these again? Does he somehow from his crew mutinying him? Does he somehow see the error of his ways and wants to repent or seek redemption? Like, how? In what way? Your character, you literally said he mentally doesn't believe he did anything wrong. And he has an inclination for this. This isn't even, like, again, a dark urge playthrough where it's like you have these urges and you don't even understand what they are or what's going on, and you can make a decision and a choice to try to, like, resist them or what. Like, this isn't that. Like, and again, the fact that the OP is defending him so, like, there's edge and then there's this. That's not edgy. What he's doing isn't edgy.
it's concerning.
It's concerning and problematic. And it's like, because again, edginess would be like Batman. He's like, I am a dark, tortured soul with a horrible past. Like, it was like if he was the one who had, like, his entire family
No,
killed or
edginess is
murdered.
berserk. Edginess
I
is
mean,
like,
well, yeah, because he had a lot of horrible things happen
yeah,
to him
he's a dangerous
from birth.
person. But he was
And
also not a good. He was a mercenary to begin with. He was okay with killing
he
random
was,
people.
but he also didn't just kill anybody, though. He wasn't just a random, vile, horrendous murder. In fact, that was the point. His character was empathetic. He had actual empathy and care more than a lot of people thought he did as a, like, a cold-blooded mercenary. It's like he actually did. He cared about people and things. And it was like, but this character shows none of that. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's wild to me. And
it's a
you know
lot.
what, though? I will absolutely leave it off, though. I will say, I do sincerely hope that when they told him about, what their thoughts were and all that other stuff, I do sincerely hope that he heard them and that he is making a change. If that was literally if that was literally his first enthusiastic thought, where that is where he wanted to go, I don't see how any other character he makes now won't still somehow kind of go in that direction in game somehow. Like, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I really sincerely do. And I hope that, like, it was a thing that he just thought was particularly interesting. And he was like, whatever. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But I just I don't see how this can be anything else. Like, yeah. Anything else you got on this, Sammy?
No, it's a concern. I would not bring that kind of character into any game. Even if someone said
It,
make an evil character, there's ways to be
I
evil
I
as
I would
is.
maybe do an evil character. Like, I could see that.
Not
Like,
like this.
I've made like an
Animals though, I
interesting.
don't like the animals
I
thing.
mean, that's it's logical just in terms of the progression of it. I wouldn't, so it's like backstory. It's like, okay, it's logical because again, that's how it literally works in the real life too.
Yeah,
So it's
but this
like,
is
okay,
fantasy. In my opinion, it'd be more interesting to make a character that was like
he was cool with
animals
animals.
are
Yeah,
animals
our
are innocent and all
friends.
this because they
Animals
didn't.
are friends or
Well, they
whatever.
don't have the kind of moral obligation to do anything. They just work the way the world works, but
Yeah.
people fuck it
I mean,
up, so
that
I'm
would
gonna
be a
kill
cool thing
people.
too. That would be a cool thing too. Like, I'm
Lawful evil
perfectly fine with
druid.
that as well. Like, I mean, well, I've literally made like an assassin rogue character. He's a changeling assassin rogue character. Where he might also have some other abilities too, I forget. But he essentially, like, he is like a serial killer. Like, he is an evil character, and I plan to use him as either like a villain for my party to like take out in a campaign, or as an evil villain that, or an evil character that I might play in like a one shot or something,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, but I would never bring this to any campaign. Like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Just
Like,
a lot. That's a lot of stuff.
but damn, we tried to end this off on a little bit better of a note. Don't know if we succeeded on that, but you know what? Hey, that's all we got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope y'all enjoyed. Hope y'all had a great time with all them rousing, really thought-provoking stories that we have shared with you today in a myriad of ways. And we hope that you enjoyed our reactions, our thoughts, our feelings and such that we portrayed and displayed here. As always, please do be sure to like and comment on the video, like or subscribe and share the channel. If you haven't, we always appreciate any of that. It does tremendous amount to support us and help us here. Um, Thank you all again, and we will make sure to catch you guys next time when we dive back down into the archive.
Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.